Chapter 792. Looking at the two Naruto candidates in the field, Asuma, as the referee, didn't even enter the field and directly announced the start of the competition in the stands. And the enchantment class also consciously launched the 4 purple flame array at the beginning of the competition. After the last lesson, the enchantment class realized that the competition between the candidates of Naruto is not comparable to the previous Chunin exams. Even if the candidates of Naruto who participated in the competition were very restrained, they still inadvertently caused a big trouble, so the enchantment class did not dare to have the slightest carelessness. Otherwise, the bill sent to their department the next day will not be the maintenance fee of the venue, but the reconstruction fee of the entire venue. In the field, with the 4 purple flame array slowly rising, Kakashi constantly took out the kunai engraved with the Flying Thunder God technique from the ninja bag and threw them in all directions. The number was dozens of them. Fuyue's scarlet 3-tomo Sharingan swayed left and right in the eye socket, silently recording the position of the kunai arranged by Kakashi. He wasn't surprised by Kakashi's actions at all. As ninjas of the same village, the two sides have already studied each other carefully before the competition, so both sides have a general idea of what tactics the other side will use. After setting up the Flying Thunder God kunai, Kakashi reminded, "I'm going to attack." "You talk a lot of nonsense." Fuyue snorted coldly. Swish, Kakashi's face darkened and he disappeared from where he stood. Soon, a series of metal clashing sounds came from the field. In the VIP lounge, looking at Kakashi using the Flying Thunder God technique to attack Uchiha Fuyue, Jiraiya looked solemn. Fuyue's performance is the same as Hyojin's in the last game. He seems to be in a passive position, but he can always resist Kakashi's offensive at the critical moment and eliminate the crisis. 3-tomo Sharingan can reach such a level? Just for a moment, Jiraiya frowned more and more. Jiraiya has never underestimated Fuyue's physical techniques. After all, almost all jutsu ninjas are good at physical techniques, and as the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, Fuyue's physical techniques are not the best in Mai, but at least belong to the top. What really makes Jiraiya feel uneasy is the strong insight shown by Fuyue. Tsunade on the side smiled and said, "Have some confidence in Kakashi, he is that person's disciple." Jiraiya frowned a little and said, "I don't know why, but I always feel that something is wrong. You've been fooled by Fugaku's tricks." After a pause, Tsunade smiled and said, "How long has Fuyue been the patriarch? How many actual battles has he participated in after the 3 wars? As the granddaughter of Hashirama, the princess of the Thousand Hand clan, Tsunade is naturally not afraid of Uchiha." On the other side of the stands, seeing his father being besieged by Kakashi using the Flying Thunder God jutsu, Sasuke's small face turned red, as if he was the one being besieged. On the side, Shinichi and Uchiha also frowned, thinking about the best way to crack the Flying Thunder God jutsu. At this time, the situation in the field changed. Kakashi, who attacked fiercely without any results, fell far away. He looked at Fuyue with a serious expression and panted heavily. Fuyue, who was also panting slightly, changed his serious expression and raised the corner of his mouth. He said with a light smile, "The 4 generations technique is only at this level?" Kakashi's face darkened. He originally thought that even if he could not take down Fuyue in one fell swoop, he would at least be able to see 1 or 2 flaws of Fuyue, injure Fuyue, and weaken Fuyue's combat power. But he did not expect that after a round of fierce attacks, apart from wasting a large amount of chakra, he gained nothing. At this time, Fuyue raised both of his arms and said with a smile, "It seems that the Flying Thunder God jutsu has a heavy burden. The anterior rectus of your left leg and the biceps of your right arm are slightly spasming. Your body seems to be unable to bear the heavy burden." Upon hearing this, Kakashi's face darkened even more. Even through the clothes, Fuyue could accurately judge the state of his body's muscles. This insight was obviously beyond Kakashi's expectations. At this time, Fuyue raised both of his arms and began to form a seal. Then, he shouted, "Fire release, grand fire annihilation!" Boom! In an instant, a huge sea of fire that could almost fill the venue rushed towards Kakashi's direction. And to Fuyue's surprise, Kakashi did not choose to use the Flying Thunder God Jutsu to dodge. Instead, he immediately formed a seal and shouted, "Earth release, earth flow wall." Crash! A hard stone wall immediately rose from the ground, blocking in front of Kakashi. In the sea of fire that surged from the sky, this stone wall was like a reef under the monstrous waves. Although it looked small, it persisted and resisted the blazing fire. At this time, Fuyue's attention was no longer on the front. The 3 Tomo Sharingan in his eye sockets were constantly shaking, looking for the landing point of Kakashi's Flying Thunder God Jutsu. He was sure that Kakashi would definitely use the Fire Release and Earth Release ninjutsu to block his line of sight and use the Flying Thunder God Jutsu to launch a surprise attack. Gotcha! And just when all of Fuyue's attention was focused on the Flying Thunder God Kunishang scattered around him, the ground under his feet suddenly exploded, and a figure rushed out from it. This? Fuyue was taken aback. Kakashi did not choose to use the Flying Thunder God Jutsu to launch a surprise attack, but chose to burrow into the ground to attack. This was really out of his expectations, and he, who had spent all of his energy on monitoring the surrounding Flying Thunder God Kunishang, was caught off guard. However, Fuyue was not a weakling after all, and he quickly reacted, using the Kunishang in his hand to stab Kakashi, who had broken out of the ground. Bzzzt. But at the moment when the Kunishang in Fuyue's hand stabbed Kakashi, who had broken out of the ground, Kakashi's body turned into a sizzling thunderlight and instantly exploded. Lightning release clone? Fuyue, who was quite confident in his own insight, was shocked again, and his whole body fell into the paralysis caused by Kakashi's lightning release clone. Gotcha! Then, the ground behind Fuyue cracked again, and Kakashi sprang out from it, launching a winning blow at the paralyzed Fuyue, who had completely lost the ability to resist. At this moment, the entire audience in the stands subconsciously held their breath. The 3 generations, whose faces were full of wrinkles, revealed a satisfied smile. "We won!" In the VIP area, Jiraiya and Tsunade couldn't help but shout out. In the ordinary stands, Sasuke's face was full of horror. No! Everyone in the venue opened their eyes wide at this moment. No one expected that the originally very stalemate situation would take a turn for the worse, to the point where the winner was decided in an instant. In the arena, the Kunishang in Kakashi's hand had already stabbed out, and Fuyue, who was less than half a meter away from him, was still floating with the green smoke from the lightning strike. Got it! Even Kakashi himself felt that he had won at this moment. But at this moment, the 3 Magatama Sharingan in Fuyue's eye sockets suddenly changed, and at the same time, a red shadow was projected from Fuyue's body. I'm asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 793. Roar! The moment the red shadow was projected out of Fugaku's body, a furious roar that could shake one's mind rang out. This roar seemed to come from the mouth of a god, causing the audience in the stands to suddenly feel nervous, as if something suddenly grabbed their hearts, causing the blood in their whole body to boil. And almost in the blink of an eye, the red phantom transformed into a clear, huge skeleton, firmly covering Fuyue, who was still in a state of paralysis. Clang! Kakashi's kunai that was thrusting towards Fugaku struck the red shadow, and immediately produced an ear-piercing sound. Then, Kakashi's whole body was shaken and fell hard to the ground, but at this time, he didn't care about the pain in his body. He looked straight at Fuyue not far away, looking at the huge skeleton phantom that covered Fuyue, and his whole face was filled with surprise and confusion. Susanoo? Kakashi was no stranger to the huge skeleton phantom that covered Fuyue in front of him. This is the Manjikyu Sharingan technique Susanoo, that the Uchiha clan is proud of, and it is also one of the strongest embodiments of the Uchiha clan's Sharingan technique. On the main stand, with a wow sound, the three generations directly stood up from their seats. The surprise on their faces was no less than Kakashi in the field. The daimyo of the Land of Fire glanced at the three generations with some doubt, seeing the change in the expression of the three generations. He immediately realized that the change in the field was most likely beyond the expectations of the three generations. The other Kage's face also changed at this moment. Uchiha with the three Tomo Sharingan is a real Jonin, and Uchiha with the Manjikyu Sharingan, without exception, is a powerful ninja with the strength of a Kage. And with Uchiha Fuyua activating Susan in public, this undoubtedly announces that there is another pair of Manjikyu Sharingan in the Uchiha clan, and Mai has added another strong Kage. VIP rest area. Damn it, it turns out that he has already awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan. Staring at the huge skeleton phantom in the field, Jiraiya's face was extremely gloomy. Before, he faintly felt that the recent reaction of the Uchiha clan has been a bit abnormal. It stands to reason that even if Uchiha Shinichi returns, the ratio of Manjikyu Sharingan between the radical and moderate factions in the Uchiha clan should only be 1. Under such circumstances, it doesn't make sense for Uchiha Fuyua, who has always been timid, to suddenly become so tough. Now with Uchiha Fuyua activating Susanoo in public, everything can be explained. After Uchiha Shinichi's return, the ratio of Manjikyu Sharingan between the radical and moderate factions in the Uchiha clan is not 1, but 2-1. In other words, the return of Uchiha Shinichi has broken the balance of power between the radical and moderate factions in the Uchiha clan, and poured a large barrel of oil on the fire in the heart of the Uchiha clan. Tsunade on the side also had a look of disbelief. Uchiha Sharingan has 3 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan? At the moment when the Senju clan is on the verge of extinction, the abnormal prosperity of the Uchiha clan is really difficult for her to accept for a while. It must be known that even in the era of Madara Uchiha, there were only 2 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan in the Uchiha clan. Mute leaned toward Tsunade and whispered, "Tsunade-sama, should I go back again to get the remaining 10 million? Tsunade snapped, "Have you forgotten the lesson just now? What's the hurry, the winner hasn't been decided yet." "But when the winner is decided, we won't be able to get the 10 million back." Mute was a little anxious. Although she also trusts the strength of Kakashi, the opponent is after all Manjikyu Uchiha who can activate Susanoo. Kakashi's chance of winning this game is really not high. Kakashi will not lose this game, and he can't lose, Tsunade said while looking at the field. "I have been in the casino for so many years, can't I analyze the situation? You have to believe in my experience." Mute. In the ordinary stands, when Fuyua activated Susanoo, the Uchiha clan immediately let out a loud cheer. Sasuke, who was nervous just now, pointed at Fuyua's Susanoo excitedly and shouted, "Naruto, look, my father also awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan. That is my father's Susanoo. That is the strongest pupil technique of our Uchiha clan." Why is it different? Naruto frowned slightly. Sasuke thought that Naruto meant that Fugaku's Susanoo was different from Shirsue's Susanoo in terms of color and shape, so he proudly introduced, "Idiot, the Susanoo launched by our Uchiha clan's kaleidoscope is different." "That's right." "Is that so?" Naruto muttered in a low voice. Obviously, Sasuke misunderstood Naruto. The difference that Naruto said does not refer to the difference in color and shape of the Susanoo, but some subtle differences in the aura of the two. As a user of Senjutsu in the village who is more compatible with the energy of nature than Jiraiya, although Naruto is confused, he is keenly aware that the Susanoo launched by Fuyua in front of him is obviously colder than the Susanoo launched by Jishue, Sasuke, and Ningtse during the battle between the summoning beasts. He does not reject Jishue's Susanoo that has been implanted with Hashirama cells and integrated with Yang release chakra, but he instinctively rejected the aura of the Susanoo in front of him. And this point, in the entire venue, only he vaguely felt it. At this time, Sasuke said to Uchiha Shinichi next to him, "Brother Shinichi, look, my father has also awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan." Shinichi curled his lips and thought to himself, "Your father is not the only one in your family who has awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan. Your brother, who always has a gloomy face, actually also has the Manjikyu Sharingan." While sighing with emotion, Shinichi noticed the two Magatama Sharingan in Sasuke's eye socket. One must know that there are very few people in the Uchiha clan who can awaken the Sharingan at the age of Sasuke, but Sasuke not only awakened the Sharingan, but also evolved the two Magatama Sharingan, which is extremely rare in the Uchiha clan. In terms of talent, Sasuke can already be compared with the rare geniuses of the Jishue and Itachi families. TSK, with this kid's talent, maybe he can also awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan in the future. After a pause, Shinichi secretly cursed, "What kind of monsters are they?" The second update, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 794. In the field. Under the crimson Susanoo, Fuyue, who still felt numb, was extremely annoyed. He was indeed ready to show his Manjikyu Sharingan in this competition for the position of 5th generation Naruto, but he shouldn't have been forced to use it like this. Damn it! Fuyue gritted his teeth. An indescribable sense of shame surged in his heart. In his imagination, this competition should have been a stage for him to declare his dignity as the patriarch of the Uchiha clan and show the power of his Manjikyu Sharingan. He wanted to defeat Kakashi on this stage first, and then show his Manjikyu Sharingan in the posture of the winner, and announce to everyone in the venue that he is the best candidate for 5th generation Naruto, instead of being forced into a desperate situation by Kakashi. The more he thought about it, the more annoyed Fuyue felt, and his eyes swept over the flying Thunder God kunai scattered around. He spread these kunai in front of me at the beginning, and launched the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, at the beginning of the fight to launch a fierce attack on me. It turned out to be a tactic to lure me into a trap. After falling into the trap, Fuyue finally understood Kakashi's tactic. From the beginning when he spread the Flying Thunder God kunai, Kakashi has actually been setting a trap, and then launched the Flying Thunder God Jutsu at the cost of chakra's consumption is also part of the trap. The purpose is to draw all of his attention to the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, to attract the kunai all around, and then find another way to launch the real killer move from the ground. He knows that I have studied him, so I will pay special attention to the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, so he cunningly used my mentality to set a trap. After a pause, Fuyue's face was a little embarrassed, and he thought, if I didn't have the Manjikyu Sharingan, I would have been defeated by him at this moment. At this time, Kakashi, who fell on the ground on the opposite side, also got up. After the initial shock, he has regained his composure. He knows very well that when the Uchiha clan has 3 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan, he can't lose, because if he loses, not only will he lose the qualification to run for the 5th generation Naruto, but even the Naruto clan, which has been passed down for 4 generations, will also fall to the bottom. And with the current situation of the shinobi world, even a Naruto who can unite everyone may not be able to guarantee the safety of the village, let alone the arrogant and domineering Uchiha clan. If Uchiha Fuyue becomes the 5th generation Naruto, then the village will inevitably suffer, and may even be torn apart. I must not hand over the village to Uchiha Fuyue. After making up his mind, the expression on Kakashi's face suddenly became firm, and the previous doubts in his eyes were all swept away at this moment. Fuyue, whose body was gradually recovering, said in a cold tone, "Kakashi, I underestimated you." With that, Fuyue took a step forward, and as he approached Kakashi step by step, the Susanoo that enveloped him gradually became complete. From the initial skeleton phantasm, it gave birth to meridians, muscles, and finally even armor, turning it into a red half-armored god. Huh! After seeing the full appearance of Fuyue's Susanoo, Kakashi was a little startled. Not only Kakashi, but also many my ninjas in the stands who had seen the Susanoo of Amatsukumi's Homusubi were also shocked at this moment. Because whether it is the appearance or the color, Fuyue's Susanoo is very similar to the one of Amatsukumi's Homusubi. The only obvious difference is that the Homusubi of Amatsukumi's Homusubi is holding the artifact jutsu in its hand, while Fuyue's Susanoo doesn't have one in its hand. Fuyue, who was approaching Kakashi step by step, said, "In front of my Manjikyu Sharingan, all your previous tricks are meaningless." Feeling the huge power of the oncoming Susanoo, Kakashi quickly restrained his thoughts. Zizi, in an instant, dazzling lightning flashed on Kakashi's right hand. This was his self-created ninjutsu, which was also his best ninjutsu. The dazzling lightning flashed continuously, spreading from his right hand to his entire right arm and even the entire right half of his body. Under the intense stimulation of the lightning release chakra, the activity of the cells in his body was raised to the extreme in an instant. Although it was not as good as the lightning release chakra mode of 4 generations laying, it was not far from it. In the rest area, looking at Kakashi who was covered in lightning, Hyojin slightly narrowed his eyes and thought, "This guy Kakashi's affinity with the lightning release chakra is also quite exaggerated. Perhaps the cells of the lightning release clone can be tested." The development of Hyojin's earth release clone had basically come to an end, so he had to start thinking about the next step of the lightning release clone. He vaguely remembered that in the future, Kakashi, who focused on the development of the lightning release, could even create a special type of lightning release like the purple lightning. It could be seen that Kakashi's affinity with the lightning release chakra was extraordinary. In the shinobi world, it seemed that only Kakashi's purple lightning and the black lightning of the 5th generation laying druid could create a special type of lightning release. Just when all the spectators in the stands thought that Kakashi was going to use the lightning to fight Uchiha Fuyue's Susanoo, a wave of air suddenly gushed out of Kakashi's body. First gate open. Second gate of rest open. Third gate of life open. Fourth gate of pain open. In just an instant, Kakashi launched the Hashiman Tanku and opened 4 gates in a row. In the VIP area, Jiraiya, who was staring at the venue, clenched his fists tightly. He understood that Kakashi was ready to die at this time, because after losing the inside of the left Sharingan, Kakashi's lightning release has become a killing move that is almost suicidal. What's more, at this time, Kakashi has stimulated the lightning release chakra to such an extent, and even opened the Hashiman Tanku to the 4th gate of pain. Under this extreme speed, Kakashi, who only has one right eye, can't attack and dodge at the same time. Can his body bear it? Compared with Jiraiya, Tsunade, as a medical ninjutsu master, is more worried about Kakashi's body. Stimulating the body with the lightning release chakra will cause a great burden on the body, and Kakashi not only used the lightning release chakra to the extreme, but also opened the Hashiman Tanku that put a greater burden on the body. This is definitely a huge test for Kakashi, who doesn't have a sage body. In the field, a huge wave of air wrapped around Kakashi's body, making Kakashi look like a god of thunder and lightning. In the face of the lightning release chakra that was pushed to the extreme, and the waves of air that were constantly surging around, even if he was in Susanoo, Fuyue couldn't help but feel a little fear in his heart. Suddenly, Kakashi, who had already bloomed his combat power to the extreme, shouted word by word. "The 5th gate, stop gate, open." Hua! As Kakashi opened the 5th gate of the Hashiman Tanku, the surrounding air suddenly became sticky, and the surrounding air seemed to become distorted in this stickiness and electric light. Does he want to die? Fuyue was quite puzzled. In the vision of his Manjikyu Sharingan, many muscles on Kakashi's body had more or less broken. It could be seen that such a heavy burden was far beyond the scope that Kakashi's body could bear. In the blink of an eye, a huge anger filled Fugaka's heart. "You damn bastard, why are you trying to stop the Uchiha clan from ascending to the position of the Hokage without even caring about your own life? Why can't our Uchiha clan become Naruto?" In the boundless anger, the Manjikyu Sharingan in Fuyue's eye sockets quickly spun. The first one is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 795. In fact, both sides had already come to a realization before they entered the arena. Whether it was Kakashi who represented Naruto, or Uchiha Fuyue who represented Uchiha clan, neither of them had any room to retreat. For both of them, this was a battle that they could not afford to lose. Therefore, when Kakashi bet his life to defeat Uchiha Fuyue and prevent Uchiha clan from ascending to Naruto's position, as the clan leader of Uchiha, Fuyue not only did not feel fear, but he was stimulated by Kakashi's resoluteness, which made him furious. Why? The Uchiha Fuyue, who had always been accustomed to restraining his emotions and tolerating concessions, at this moment let out a humiliating roar from the depths of his heart. In his opinion, as one of the founders of Mai, why had Uchiha been excluded from the center of Mai's power? Why had so many rules and regulations bound Uchiha? Even now, the Uchiha clan was so powerful, but the village still refused to recognize Uchiha. Such humiliation made him, the clan leader of Uchiha, hysterical. At this moment, killing intent surged in his heart. He wanted to completely destroy Kakashi in front of him, and destroy all the shackles imposed on the Uchiha clan by the village. Kakashi, who was opposite him, also urged his strength to the extreme at this moment. The turbulent airflow rolled up the gravel on the ground around him, and slowly rose into the air. Looking from a distance, it seemed that the gravity in the area around him had changed. As for these broken stones that had risen into the air due to the airflow, when they encountered the lightning that shone on his body, they were quickly electrocuted into pieces by the extremely strong lightning. Then, they were swept up by the turbulent airflow and formed a strange cyclone with a deep color that looked like a storm. In this storm that constantly flashed with lightning, Kakashi's face was solemn. There was no sadness or joy on his face, even his eyes were silent. In the stands, unlike the previous enthusiastic cheers, all the audience held their breath, making the crowded stands quiet, because everyone knows that the two candidates of Naruto in the field are about to fight. At this moment, an unexpected scene happened in the field. Before the decisive battle, Kakashi, in front of Uchiha Fuyue, the clan leader of Uchiha, slowly closed his remaining right eye. Naruto looked puzzled. Why did that uncle close his eye? He can't see anything, how can he fight? Sasuke smiled proudly and said, "What do you know? He closed his eye because he is afraid of my father's Manjikyu Genjutsu." On the side, Shinichi shook his head. In the VIP seat, Mute also asked the same question as Naruto. Tsunade explained with a dignified look, under the stimulation of the thunder release chakra and the extreme speed increase of Hachiman Duanjia, Kakashi's right eye can't help him much. Jiraiya took over the conversation. Instead of dealing with the relatively delayed information received by the right eye, it is better to turn off the visual system and put all the energy into chakra perception and killing intent perception. Listening to the words of Tsunade and Jiraiya, Mute was stunned. This kind of fighting method is beyond her current level. Tsunade then said with emotion, "Kakashi is worthy of being that person's disciple if he was given more time, or let him know in advance that Fuyue hid the information of the Manjikyu Sharingan, he will definitely be able to do better." Mute asked, "Tsunade-sama, do you think Kakashi still has a chance to win?" Tsunade nodded. However, Tsunade is also very clear that whether Kakashi can win or not depends more on the Manjikyu Sharingan of Uchiha Fuyue. In the field, when their respective momentum rose to the extreme, the two people in the field almost launched a decisive attack at the same time, under the exclamation of all the spectators in the stands. Kakashi was almost like a moving storm, in the roar and thunder. He went straight to Fuyue under the Susanoo Amaterasu, and under the huge wave of air, Fuyue under the Susanoo closed his right eye, and then suddenly opened it. In an instant, a black flame suddenly formed in the focus of his eyes, and the focus of his eyes was Kakashi, who seemed to be wrapped in a lightning storm. Voila! In an instant, the black flame covered the cyclone around Kakashi's body. Whether it was the wave of air or the lightning, it seemed that they could not get rid of the burning of this black flame. Whoosh! Just as the black flame continued to spread in the cyclone and was about to extend to Kakashi, Kakashi, who was in the middle of the charge, suddenly disappeared from the vision of Fuyue's Manjikyu Sharingan, leaving only the black flame flying along the wave of air, falling everywhere in the venue. Some even drifted to the four purple flame formation that isolated the venue from the stands, burning on the boundary wall of the four purple flame formation. And at the moment when Kakashi's figure disappeared, a huge impact hit Fuyue from behind. Boom! The dazzling lightning wrapped in the wave of air, with unparalleled power, hit Fuyue's Susanoo with a roar that made people's eardrums hurt. Damn it! Under this impact, even with the protection of Susanoo, Fuyue still staggered forward and almost fell to the ground, and the ground of the whole venue was also shattered. Kacho then, a cracking sound came into the ears of both Kakashi and Fuyue at the same time. There is no doubt that this cracking sound came from Fuyue's Susanoo. Looking back at the crack on the back of Susanoo, Fuyue was surprised. Although he knew that Susanoo was not unbreakable, and there are many ways to break Susanoo in the ninja world, but he never thought that Kakashi would have the ability to threaten his Susanoo. What a pity! Almost at the same time, the three generations in the main stand, as well as Jiraiya and Tsunade in the VIP area, sighed with regret in their hearts. They can all see that Kakashi's attack this time is actually not far from breaking Fuyue's Susanoo. As long as the speed is faster and the strength is greater, breaking Susanoo is not a luxury. I'm afraid his body can't bear it. Finding that Kakashi did not continue to attack after the blow, Jiraiya secretly felt worried. At this time, Tsunade on the side no longer cared about the rules. Directly through the slug clone, her powerful yang release chakra was transmitted to Kakashi's already exhausted body. The sudden huge chakra immediately restored Kakashi's vitality. He was quite afraid of the strange black fire that spread in the venue, and once again launched a fierce attack on Fuyue. Second update, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 796. Boom, 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 accompanied by the deafening roar, the entire venue fell into a rhythmic vibration, and this rhythm originated from the frequency of Kakashi's fierce attacks on Fugaku under the Susanoo. Kakashi used the lightning chakra and Hashiman Tanto to the extreme to launch a fierce attack on Fuyue, and then used the flying Thunder God Jutsu as the pivot to quickly adjust his position after a blow, change the angle of attack, and continue to launch the next round of fierce attacks. Moreover, every time Kakashi launched a suicidal charge, the shockwaves and shockwaves would cause the entire arena to shake. Therefore, amidst the rumbling sounds, the audience in the stands felt like they were riding a roller coaster. Along with the waves of tremors, they were up and down, and all of them were dizzy from the vibrations. Amidst the constant tremors, the load-bearing stone pillars on the grandstand collapsed one after another. Even the foundation of the grandstand was blasted open with ghastly cracks. Quickly use the earth release ninjutsu to strengthen the stands. The Jonin in charge of maintaining the order in the stands shouted loudly when he saw this. Unlike the two Naruto candidates in the last game, the two Naruto candidates in this game were obviously fighting with all their might. Both sides in the contest did not restrain themselves at all, completely doing their best. Therefore, even with the isolation of the four purple flame array, the peripheral stands were still under great pressure, like a sand sculpture constantly being washed by the waves. Compared to the Jonin in charge of maintaining the order in the stands, the barrier class was even more bitter. One must know that the 4 purple flame array is a high-level barrier. No matter what touches it, it will be immediately burned to ashes by the barrier. The gravel that splashed like cannonballs in the last game also obediently turned into flying ash in front of the 4 purple flame array. But for some reason, Fugaku's 4 violet flame array, which has always been used to burn other people's 4 violet flame array, suffered a setback this time when it encountered the black flames released by Fugaku's Manjikyu Sharingan. Not only did it fail to burn the black flames quickly, but the black flames continued to spread. In just a moment, large areas of the barrier were ignited with black flames. Under the continuous burning of the black flames, the 4 purple flame array could not continue. In just a short time, 7 or 8 experienced elite Chunin in the barrier class had almost their whole body's chakra drained because of maintaining the barrier. The strange black flames gradually spread to most of the venue, and soon attracted the attention of the 5 Kage in the main stands. The Kage were keenly aware that the black flames can burn almost anything, whether it is the soil on the ground, stones, or even the barrier protecting the stands. While the other Kage were amazed, only the Mizukage of 4 generations secretly shivered, as if remembering some bad memories. In the stands of the Uchiha clan, looking at the black flames that spread wantonly in the venue, Itachi had a strange expression on his face, and a trace of worry flashed in his eyes. When he found out that his father's Manjikyu Sharingan is also using Amaterasu, he was taken aback. He never thought that he would have the same pupil technique as his father. Can everyone in our clan use Amaterasu? A doubt inadvertently came to Itachi's mind. Among all the people present today, Itachi is probably the one who knows the power of Amaterasu the best. Even Fuyue, who had just used Amaterasu, is not as good as Itachi, because from the skill of Fuyue's Amaterasu, Fuyue obviously doesn't have much experience in using Amaterasu. Because of his understanding of the power of Amaterasu, Itachi understands that the situation has developed to this point. There is no suspense in the outcome. In the field. Boom. 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 The roar continued, which means that Kakashi still hasn't given up, still struggling to hit the Susanoo on top of Uchiha Fuyue's head. Every attack of Kakashi is an indomitable attack, because he can't effectively dodge the enemy's counterattack, so once he is hit by Fuyue's counterattack, he will most likely die on the spot. It's just that Kakashi is constantly adjusting the position and angle of each attack through Flying Thunder God Jutsu, coupled with the fact that Fuyue is also suffering from the violent impact. It is difficult for him to launch an effective counterattack against Kakashi, who is using Flying Thunder God Jutsu, causing the situation to fall into a stalemate. Fuyue can only passively defend, relying on his own Susanoo to resist Kakashi's fierce attack. And Kakashi has no choice but to launch a desperate charge against Fuyue's huge Susanoo again and again, which may lead to his own death at any time. Listening to the continuous cracking sound coming from the Susanoo, Fuyue roared in his heart, "Damn it, how can his body bear this degree of burden? This is impossible." The fact that Kakashi can launch such a wild and fierce attack is already beyond Fuyue's expectation, but what is more difficult for Fuyue to understand is that Kakashi can maintain this degree of attack for so long, which is simply against common sense. Just like Fuyue, Kakashi, who is gritting his teeth and holding on, also screamed in his heart, Why can't I break it? Didn't Winchim from Amatsukami easily cut through the Susanoo with her bone blade? Is my Rachel not as good as his bone blade? What is the problem? Although there is a huge amount of chakra from Tsunade, Kakashi's body is almost at its limit. At this moment, several major muscle groups in his body have been torn and repaired repeatedly for 6 or 7 times, and muscle fatigue is constantly accumulating. If this continues, even if there is a steady stream of chakra, his body will not be able to support it and collapse. In the resting area, Ring asked nervously, Kuroto, can Kakashi win this round? Hyojin said, No, he can hold on for another 15 seconds at most. After seeing the slug on Kakashi's shoulder, Hyojin knew that Tsunade is cheating in this round, but even so, Kakashi still lacks the means to break the Susanoo, and the black flame of Amaterasu has spread to the whole area. The flying thunder god kunai that Kakashi set up before have been burned by the black flame, so there is not much space for Kakashi to move around. What? He can only hold on for 15 seconds at most? Ring was stunned for a moment, and then said in disbelief, "But Kakashi clearly has the upper hand." Hyojin shook his head. Every blow from Kakashi can indeed cause damage to Fuyue's Susanoo, but as long as he can't break it with one blow, Fuyue can use his ocular power to restore the damaged Susanoo. Therefore, it seems that Fuyue is suppressed by Kakashi, and Kakashi may break the Susanoo at any time, but in fact, Kakashi's defeat is inevitable. Ah! At this moment, Kakashi's cry came from the field. Kakashi, who is constantly being squeezed by Amaterasu, finally failed to escape the attack of Amaterasu, and his body was accidentally touched by the black flame. The winner has been decided. Hyojin sighed, "I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes." Chapter 797. In the Field. Seeing Kakashi fall to the ground and get burned by the black flames of Amaterasu, Fugaku did not feel happy at all. Instead, he felt an indescribable sense of depression. This kind of victory was really too embarrassing for him. Suddenly, Fuyue under Susanoo also half knelt on the ground and covered his eyes with his hands. The tingling pain from the Manjikyu Sharingan reminded him that his pupil power was consumed, so he had to suppress the anger in his heart, calm his depressed mood, and deactivate Susanoo. The idea of taking this opportunity to kill Kakashi did flash in Fuyue's mind. But in the next moment, he dispelled this idea very rationally. It's not that he can't kill Kakashi, but he can't kill him now. He can't kill him in front of the whole village. And when he ascends to the position of Naruto in the future, and becomes the fifth Sama, Kakashi's life and death will only be in his hands. After making up his mind, Fuyue's eyes narrowed. In an instant, the black flames of Amaterasu that almost spread to the entire venue and spread towards the stands were all extinguished, even those on Kakashi's body were no exception. On the main stand, looking at Kakashi, who was burned from head to toe, fell to the ground and almost lost consciousness, 3 generations Naruto thought bitterly. This is going to be troublesome. In the arrangement of the Naruto faction, Kakashi must win this game. As long as Kakashi wins this game, then the next game Hyojin, who received the money, will be perfunctory and deliberately lose to Kakashi. In this way, the Naruto faction will smoothly complete the transition from 3 generations to the 5th Sama. But no one expected that there would be such an accident in this game. Kakashi's performance is actually impeccable, because even if the 3 generations were to fight, facing a pair of Manjikyu Sharingan with unknown pupil power, there is still not much chance of winning. In the end, I underestimated Fuyue, sigh. Thinking of the trouble that was about to face, the 3 generations sighed faintly. As Kakashi fell to the ground and was seriously injured and unconscious, and Fuyue deactivated Susanoo and extinguished the black flames of Amaterasu, the outcome was already clear, so the 4 purple flame array in the venue and the stands was quickly deactivated. Swoosh! Almost at the moment when the 4 purple flame formation was lifted, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and the others rushed to Kakashi's side amidst the sound of breaking wind and started emergency treatment for Kakashi. In the field, Fuyue did not intervene, he just stood quietly in the same place. His face was full of gloominess. The dignified patriarch of the Uchiha clan, the possessor of the Manjikyu Sharingan, and the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, even with Kakashi, he still ended up in such a sorry state. He didn't feel much joy from this victory. In the rest area, Ling murmured, How did Kakashi suddenly lose? Was the black flame that powerful just now? The scene of Kakashi instantly losing his combat power as soon as he was touched by the black flame surprised Ling very much. At this moment, she also realized that the black flame that almost covered the whole field before was probably not an ordinary flame. It's a pity, Hyojin sighed and shook his head. If Kakashi was given a few more years, let Kakashi open the 6th gate of the 8 inner gates, Gate of View, and even the 7th gate, Gate of Wonder, one by one, then he might really be able to directly destroy Fuyue's Susanoo. Or, if Tsunade taught Kakashi the extraordinary strength fist, using the thunder release chakra, to stimulate the cells, and then open the 8 inner gates, to the 5th gate, there may be a chance that he could directly destroy Fuyue's Susanoo. Of course, if Fuyue didn't put on his arrogance as the patriarch of the Uchiha clan and directly launched Amaterasu to attack Kakashi at the beginning of the battle, this match would have already been over. However, there are not so many ifs in a fight between ninjas. Victory or defeat is often decided by a single thought. If you are not prepared, then you can only bear the consequences. If you give the opportunity to the opponent, then you must bear the corresponding risk. This is the law of the shinobi world, no one can violate it, even someone as strong as Madara can lose his life if he is careless. At this time, the audience in the stands gradually recovered from the shock of the abrupt end of the match, and the quiet venue slowly became much noisier. In the ordinary stands, Sasuke shouted excitedly, "My father won! My father won!" Naruto nodded. "Sasuke, is your father going to become Naruto?" "Of course." Sasuke nodded without thinking, in his heart. His father who has awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan is invincible, even Hyojin who defeated Jishuei in the last match is not his father's opponent. In the stands of the Uchiha clan. "We won. We won. As expected of the patriarch. The position of Naruto is ours." Loud cheers resounded. All the Uchiha clansmen shouted loudly, venting the joy in their hearts. In this match, although Fuyue won with some difficulty, but in the end, he still won, not to mention that his opponent Kakashi is seriously injured and unconscious at the moment. This made the Uchiha clansmen feel very happy. Regarding the election of 5th Sama Naruto, the Uchiha clan has analyzed it. They are convinced that Kakashi is the real candidate of Naruto, and Hyojin is just a person that Naruto used to target Jishuei. Therefore, in the eyes of many Uchiha clansmen, Fuyue defeated Kakashi, which is equivalent to winning the position of Naruto. At this moment, a jonin came to the main stand and asked the 3 generations, "Naruto-sama, shall we start the next match now? We can't let the election continue." The 3 generations immediately glanced at the venue, and when he saw the Mai ninjas who were busy reinforcing the stands, he suddenly had an idea in his heart, and immediately ordered, "Inform the people that the stands area is seriously damaged, today's election will end here." Yes. The jonin didn't have any doubts, and immediately retreated to pass the order. Because the match between Fuyue and Kakashi has indeed destroyed the stands area very seriously. Many of the stands have collapsed, and many spectators have to move to other areas. If another similar fierce battle breaks out, the stands area is likely to collapse completely. The order of the 3 generations quickly spread throughout the venue. After the Uchiha clan received the news, a jonin of Uchiha immediately jumped into the venue and reported to Fuyue. After listening to the report of the clansmen, Fuyue nodded in satisfaction and thought proudly, "The 3 generations didn't play any tricks this time. It seems that this match has made them recognize the truth." Fuyue was very satisfied with the order of the 3 generations to temporarily suspend the election, because at this moment, his chakra and pupil powers were more serious, and he really needed to rest for a while. Second, I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 798. With the suspension of the 5th Naruto campaign, the audience in the stands began to leave in 2s and 3s, and while leaving in an orderly manner, The audience also began to discuss the competition between the 4 Naruto candidates. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect to see the legendary Susanoo with my own eyes today. Yeah, I didn't expect that the patriarch of the Uchiha family also has Manjikyu Sharingan. He is indeed a senior ninja, he hit it so deeply. Today is really not in vain, the 2 games are so wonderful. What, the first game was too deceptive, I didn't see what was going on at all. It's not your fault. My Chunin's uncle told me that when it comes to a battle between Hokage candidates, not to mention us commoners, even Genin and Chunin can barely see the general situation. There is no doubt that the competition between the 4 Naruto candidates is an eye-opener for all the audience present today. Compared with today's 2 competitions, the Chunin exams held in the village in the past are just like children's games, boring and boring. So the audience who is leaving the venue is very talkative. And the ones who are more excited are undoubtedly the Uchiha clan and the Hyuga clan. After the end of the 2 competitions, if there is no accident, the 5th Naruto will be chosen between Uchiha Fuyue and Hyojin. In other words, the 5th Naruto is either Uchiha or Hyuga. Therefore, when the 2 clans left the venue, there was some small friction. If it was in the past, the Hyuga clan would definitely choose to avoid a direct conflict with the Uchiha clan, but now it is different. Hyojin is also one of the candidates for the 5th Naruto, and he has just defeated the Uchiha clan's Manjikyu in front of the public. So the Hyuga clan all feel that today they must not admit defeat. They cannot weaken the momentum of Hyojin, who is working hard to run for the 5th generation. Not to mention the Uchiha clan, many Uchiha clansmen still feel that Jishui lost to Hyojin. After all, Jishui didn't even use the Manjikyu Sharingan, so they have long been indignant. As a result, a little bit of friction almost caused the 2 great Dojutsu Kekkei Genkai of Konoha to fight. Fortunately, under the timely intervention of the village and the restraint of the patriarchs of both sides, the clansmen of the 2 clans who were eager to fight were forcibly stopped, and then they returned to their clansmen's land. In the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Shinji, who had just been taught a lesson by Hyojin a few days ago, complained to Patriarch Fuyue, "Patriarch, why didn't you let us teach those bastards of the Hyuga clan a lesson?" At this moment Fuyue has restored his usual seriousness, and said in a deep voice, "Before I become the 5th generation, don't make trouble, don't give the village a chance to pick on our Uchiha clan." Although he felt that the Naruto clan should not be able to make any big waves, but out of caution, Fuyue still restrained the clansmen. Uchiha Shinji nodded. "Well, when you become the 5th generation, you will settle the accounts with those bastards of the Hyuga clan." Obviously, with Fuyue running for the 5th generation Naruto clan and successfully winning the first round, eliminating Kakashi of the Naruto clan, his prestige in the clan has also become higher than before. No matter how excited the clansmen were, they gradually learned to restrain themselves in front of him. On the side of the Hyuga clan, a Hyuga clansman said, "If Kuroto becomes the 5th generation, our Hyuga clan will be able to hold our heads high in front of those Uchiha clan." Another Hyuga clansman smiled and said, "When Kuroto became the headmaster of the ninja school, I knew that he would have great achievements in the future." Haha, how about it, I was right. By the way, where did Kuroto go? He must have gone somewhere to celebrate. Today, he defeated the Uchiha clan's Manjikyu. It really should be celebrated. Listening to the excited discussion of the clansmen, the clan elder's face was gloomy as if it could drip water. Patriarch Hayashi was also quite disappointed. Making a name for the Hyuga clan should have been his duty as the head of the main clan, but the one who really accomplished it was Kuroto, who was a branch family member, which made him feel ashamed and jealous at the same time. And just when the clansmen were talking about Hyojin enthusiastically, Hyojin had quietly changed his makeup and came to the betting station with you. After handing over the betting receipt, you glanced at the odds and asked, "Hey, why did the odds increase so much compared to this morning?" At first, Hyojin's odds were 1 to 3, but because you and Mute each bet 10 million, plus many gamblers wanted to bet big, the odds gradually changed to 1 to 2. After that, the odds were almost maintained at this level. When he left for the venue in the morning, Yu also confirmed the odds, but when she received the money, she found that the odds had changed to by 1 to 1, which was a lot higher than in the morning, which made Kuroda earn an extra 5 million ryo. The banker smiled awkwardly, because a buyer who bet on number 4 suddenly changed his mind and withdrew a large amount of money, so the odds for number 4 have increased correspondingly. On the side, Hyojin counted the money and said with a smile, "Hee, who is so stupid? Outside my village." Obsidian stood on the edge of a cliff, looking at the Naruto rock in my village in the distance. At this time, Zetsu poked half of his body out of the ground and said, "The election for the 5th generation Naruto in my village has been temporarily suspended due to the damage to the venue. Among the 4 candidates, Uchiha Jishue and Kakashi have been eliminated, leaving only Uchiha Fuyue and Hyojin. Mai's election for the 5th generation Naruto village is undoubtedly a big event in the ninja world, so Akatsuki is also secretly paying attention to this matter. However, because Akatsuki can't determine whether there are traps set by Amatsukami in my village, they sent Obsidian and Zetsu, the 2 strongest members with the ability to protect themselves." "Is that so?" Listening to Zetsu's description, Obsidian was a little distracted. For some reason, the word Naruto always tugged at his heartstrings, reminding him of his long-sealed dream. This dream was both clear and distant, as if it was something from his previous life. Zetsu smiled and said, "I didn't expect that the informant you developed before would become one of the candidates for Naruto village. Maybe we can start from this aspect and get key information." Obsidian, who was pulled back from his thoughts, curled his lips and snorted heavily. "Humph, that idiot Hyojin can also become a candidate for Naruto village. What's the point of such a village, and such a Naruto village? What a joke." Zetsu glanced at Obsidian and said, "Strange, you are actually angry because of this kind of thing." "Angry?" Taken aback, the Obito immediately explained, "I'm not angry, I'm just thinking that Suijin couldn't even beat me when he was in the shinobi school, and now he can also become a Hokage candidate. Don't you think this is ridiculous?" Zetsu shrugged and said, "I don't think so." "You?" Curling his lips again, Obsidian said, "That's because you haven't seen what Hyojin looked like when he was in the ninja school. He was even worse than me at that time. If I wasn't late for the exam, he would be at the bottom." Zetsu looked at Obsidian in confusion and said, "Obsidian, you are very strange today. First update, please recommend votes, monthly votes." Chapter 799. Inside Naruto's office, 3 generations took a deep breath of the pipe and asked with a tired expression, "How is Kakashi?" Tsunade's face sank. The surface of his body is heavily burned, and his muscles and bones are also damaged to varying degrees. Overall, his injuries are not light, but his life is not in danger for the time being. "That's good." 3 generations breathed a sigh of relief. Jiraiya on the side asked with concern, "Then how long will it take for him to recover?" Tsunade shook her head. "It's hard to say at the moment, but it will take at least 2 or 3 months of careful recuperation." 2 or 3 months. Jiraiya frowned. Why would it take so long? Tsunade explained, "Don't underestimate the burns, I have thoroughly checked them. The black flames released by Fuyue are very strange. Not only is the temperature higher than ordinary flames, but the intensity of the burning is also far higher than ordinary flames. Although Kakashi was only burned for a few dozen seconds, the injured areas seem to have been burned by high temperature for more than 10 minutes. Most of the cells in his body are necrotic, and his injuries are much more serious than they seem. If not for timely treatment, his life may not have been saved." Zhuan Xiaochun was quite annoyed after listening to Tsunade's explanation. "Damn it, we were all fooled by that bastard Fuyue." 3 generations nodded. I didn't expect him to hide so deeply, I was wrong. It stands to reason that with the arrogant and domineering personality of the Uchiha clan, there is no need to deliberately conceal such a glorious thing as awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan, not to mention that Fuyue is the patriarch of the Uchiha clan. Concealing this matter will have a certain impact on his own prestige, which is also the reason why his reputation in the shinobi world is not prominent so far. Jiraiya analyzed. He should have awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan earlier than Jishue, most likely during the Third Shinobi World War, when Minato was still active. Knowing that concealing the Manjikyu Sharingan will affect his prestige, but Fuyue still chose to conceal it, so there must be a reason for him to do so. Jiraiya thought about it and felt that his disciple, for generations Naruto Minato, should be the main reason why Fuyue chose to conceal his Manjikyu Sharingan. At that time, the Naruto clan, which had 4 generations and his wife, had completely crushed the Uchiha clan. When Kakashi accepted the Obsidian Sharingan as a gift, the Uchiha clan didn't even have the courage to find fault with him. After the rebellion of the Nine Tails, although 4 generations died, the traces of the Nine Tails being controlled by the Sharingan were too obvious, causing the village to have a huge suspicion of the Uchiha clan, so Fuyue didn't dare to reveal the secret of his Manjikyu Sharingan. But now, Naruto clan has experienced the destruction of the village and the betrayal of the Danzo, and both their strength and reputation have fallen to the bottom. With the return of Shinichi, the Uchiha clan now has 3 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan, which is unprecedented, so it is completely reasonable for Fuyue to choose this time to reveal his Manjikyu Sharingan. Asma, who has been leaning on the side without saying a word, asked, "What should we do about the matter of the 5 generations?" Faced with Asma's question, everyone in the office sighed and remained silent for a long time. After a while, Zhuan Xiaochun said, "Hizen, you must make a decision now." 3 generations sighed helplessly. It's really tricky. Even if 3 generations is experienced and knowledgeable, in the face of the current embarrassing situation, they also feel helpless. This is also the reason why he hurriedly stopped the 5 generations election. Now, what Naruto clan is facing is not a multiple-choice question. Because whether it is the Uchiha Fuyue of the Uchiha clan or the Hyuga of the Hyuga clan, they are all candidates for the 5 generations Naruto clan. Uchiha Fuyue? Hyuga? Shaking her head, Tsunade curled her lips and said, "This is simply a dead end. It is not that the Naruto clan can't accept a Uchiha Naruto, but it must be a tamed Uchiha who adheres to the belief that the village is greater than the clan. And from the performance of Fugaku, it is obvious that he is an Uchiha that upholds the tradition of Uchiha supremacy, so this is something that cannot be tolerated by the Hokage faction. At the same time, this is also the reason why the Naruto clan can consider giving the future 6 generations to Uchiha clan, but not the 5 generations. Not to mention Hyuga, from the beginning to the end, the Naruto clan has never really considered letting Hyuga take the position, because Hyuga's identity as a Hyuga clan member is doomed to miss the position of Naruto clan. Because the caged bird can't be removed, even the Hyuga clan can't do anything about it. Asma suggested, since the situation is already like this, instead of letting the Uchiha clan take the position, it is better to let Kuroto be the 5th generation. Jiraiya shook his head. The current situation of the shinobi world is so complicated, even Rock Village can't escape the bad luck of being overturned overnight. How can we choose a 5th generation with such obvious flaws? If Kuroto becomes the 5th generation, would the Hyuga clan still dare to act against him? Asma felt that with the boldness of the Hyuga clan, they probably wouldn't dare to do anything against Hyuga, who has already become Naruto clan. Tsunade snorted coldly. You have experienced the experience of the Guardian 12, how can you still be so naive? Even if the Hyuga clan can restrain their ambition, how can you guarantee that they won't be coerced by others? If someone coerces them, then wouldn't the life of our village's Naruto be in the hands of others? Zhuan Xiao-chun also echoed, Naruto's life must not be in the hands of others. Asuma said, I also understand this truth, but Kakashi has already lost. In the next battle, Kuroto will definitely not be able to defeat Uchiha Fuyue, who has the Manjikyu Sharingan. If we don't take advantage of this opportunity, are we going to wait for Fuyue to defeat Kuroto in front of the entire village, and then naturally become the fifth generation? In the face of Asuma's questioning, the elders were all speechless. At this moment, 3 generations suddenly said, There is no next battle. Zhuan Xiao-chun asked, Hyzen, what do you mean by this? Hyojin can't lose. If he loses, we won't have any leeway. After a pause, 3 generations said more firmly, and we must not give Uchiha a stage to show off his strength. Tsunade immediately understood the meaning of 3 generations and asked, Sensei, do you want to directly enter the vote of confidence? Today, the strength shown by the Uchiha clan not only put great pressure on Naruto, but also caused a lot of pressure on the other clans in the village. Therefore, 3 generations obviously wanted to jump out of the field that Uchiha clan was good at and pull them into the field that Naruto was good at. In the vote of confidence, they used a soft knife to eliminate Uchiha Fuyue, the candidate for Naruto's second. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 800. Inside the Uchiha clan. Patriarch, this is the Naruto robe that we specially customized for you. Are you satisfied with it? An Uchiha Jonin respectfully handed a Naruto robe painted with the Uchiha clan emblem to Uchiha Fu. After receiving the brand new Naruto robe that was customized for him, Fuyue smiled and said, Not bad, I like it very much. With that said, Fuyue directly put on the Naruto robe. He didn't think there was anything wrong with the Naruto robe that was customized by his clansmen. Because in his opinion, the only remaining competitor, Hyojin, is not a threat at all. The position of the 5th Naruto is destined to be his, so it is completely reasonable to prepare the Naruto robe earlier. After trying it and feeling that the Naruto robe fits him very well, Fuyue didn't take it off, but sat down directly in the Naruto robe and asked, Have you found out when is the next competition? Uchiha Jonin said, There is no news from the Naruto building, but I have asked the foreman who repaired the venue in private. The repair and reinforcement of the venue's stands will take at least a week. A week, Fuyue pondered when he heard this. A week's time is a little long for him. He didn't feel much before, but after defeating Kakashi in public and revealing the Manjikyu Sharingan, he suddenly felt that power is so wonderful, so he can't wait to enter the Naruto building and engrave his face on the Naruto rock. After a while, he asked again, Is there any movement from the Hyuga clan? Uchiha Jonin shook his head. Only some celebratory activities. As for other things, we haven't found anything for the time being. Fuyue's eyes were cold, and he said in a serious tone, Keep an eye on them, I don't want anything out of my control to happen before the competition. Uchiha Jonin quickly replied, Yes. Hyojin. After muttering to himself, Fuyue ordered the clansmen, Go, find me Jishue and Sasuke. Although he doesn't think that Hyojin is a threat to him, Fuyue still decided to ask Jishue for information about Hyojin. As for calling Sasuke, he wanted to find out more information about Hyojin's psychic ninja pig through Sasuke. After all, the scuffle between the 3 great psychic ninja beasts, Shinya, Bunta, and the wild boar caused a lot of noise. Soon, Jishue and Sasuke came to Fuyue's study room. After seeing Fuyue wearing the Naruto robe, Sasuke shouted excitedly, Father, is this your Naruto robe? Jishue was stunned for a moment, and then a trace of worry flashed in her eyes. Obviously, he hasn't ascended to the position of Naruto, but Naruto robe is already on him. Fuyue's eagerness and unscrupulousness made Jishue feel a deep uneasiness from the bottom of her heart inside Naruto's office. In the face of the decision of 3 generations, Jiraiya raised his concerns. Sensei, Uchiha now has 3 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan. Can the Jonin vote really make them compromise? 3 generations said firmly. It is because they have 3 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan that they are arrogant to the point of forgetting themselves, so we can't hand over the position of Naruto to them. With the current state of the Uchiha clan, once Fuyue ascends to the position of Naruto, 3 generations can't imagine what radical things they can do. But what if they don't recognize the result of the Jonin vote? Jiraiya has no doubt that Uchiha Fuyue will lose in the Jonin vote. After all, Uchiha's police force has offended people in the village for decades, and the Uchiha clan doesn't know how to restrain themselves, so they have offended many people openly and secretly. Coupled with the fact that the Uchiha clan now has an unprecedented 3 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan, the other clans in the village will inevitably want to check and balance Uchiha, so as long as Naruto uses his connections, the result of the Jonin vote is almost destined. However, Naruto can control the result of the vote, but they can't stop the Uchiha clan from directly flipping the table. Jiraiya's question made the office quiet again. At this time, Zhuan Shao Chun sighed. If Danzo is here, he will definitely encourage us to attack Uchiha in advance. Sigh, 3 generations also sighed softly. Without Danzo around, some things are really inconvenient. Asma asked, what about Kuroto? If he passes the Jonin vote, won't he directly become a 5th generation? But didn't you oppose him before? 3 generations said, now we can only take one step at a time. In the eyes of 3 generations, compared to Uchiha Fuyue, Hyojin is obviously someone who can be negotiated and persuaded. So if he has to make a choice between Uchiha Fuyue and Hyojin, he would rather choose Hyojin. Moreover, he can see that Hyojin is not greedy for the position of Naruto. Instead, he is inexplicably greedy. Of course, this small shortcoming of Hyojin is not a bad thing for Naruto. If Hyojin doesn't ask for anything, then 3 generations will really feel uneasy. Zhuan Shao Chun questioned, Hyzen, is this Hyojin really reliable? If we push him to the position of Naruto, will he turn against us? Jiraiya and Tsunade also looked at 3 generations together. Both of them recognize Hyojin's loyalty to the village and recognize that Hyojin is an excellent Mai ninja. But after all, power is the most corrosive poison to people's hearts. They are not sure whether Hyojin will have other thoughts under the corrosion of power. 3 generations said, before the vote of confidence I will personally communicate with Hyojin. I will sign an agreement with him to let him become the 5th generation on the surface, but he will still only have the position of the headmaster of the ninja school. As for Naruto's related duties, including the Umbu, they will be transferred to Kakashi, and in the future, Kakashi will replace him as the 6th Naruto at the appropriate time. Tsunade frowned. Will he agree? He should know very well that from the beginning to the end, he is not our preferred candidate for the 5th generation, so he should be able to understand. After a pause, 3 generations continued. If he refuses, then we can only use some means to eliminate him and Fuyue in the vote of confidence. From the standpoint of 3 generations, he was unwilling to let Hyojin, who had little to do with Naruto and was a member of the Hyojin family, become the 5th generation. However, the situation forced him to choose a relatively acceptable one between the two. Moreover, 3 generations also had a small thought in choosing Hyojin. That was, once Hyojin became the 5th generation on the surface, then with the personal relationship between Jishue and Hyojin, it would be easy to pull Jishue into Naruto's camp. At that time, when fighting against the Uchiha clan, Naruto's side would have a greater chance. First, I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 801. In my hospital. Looking at Kakashi, who was lying on the hospital bed wrapped like a mummy and unable to move, Hyojin sighed and said, Is it necessary to fight so hard? Kakashi had a bitter look on his face. The reason why he gambled his life in the competition was that he understood that only by defeating Fuyue in front of all the villagers could the ambition of the Uchiha clan be restrained and a disaster be averted for the village. But in the end, he still failed. After this victory, the Uchiha clan would only become more arrogant, and Naruto would never compromise on the issue of the bottom line of Naruto's ownership. So he could almost foresee that a disaster that would sweep the whole village was inevitable. Hyojin advised, "Don't think too much about it. Take good care of your injuries first." Kakashi said in a dry and hoarse voice, "Kuroto, I can only rely on you now." Hyojin joked, "Hey, we agreed before that the 50 million was only the money to eliminate Jishue. If you want me to kill Fuyue, the price has to be calculated separately." Kakashi only thought that Hyojin was joking, so his tone became more serious. He coughed and said, "Kuroto, now is not the time to joke, cough. Okay, don't get excited." Hyojin quickly comforted Kakashi. Hyojin had already foreseen the current situation. As for the solution, Hyojin actually had several ideas, but he obviously would not talk about this with Kakashi, who was seriously injured now. After calming down, Kakashi sighed dejectedly, "I was confused. Uchiha Fuyue has awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan and has the ability to activate Susanoo, and Susanoo is the most effective against pure body technique ninjas like you. Even if you fight desperately, the result will probably be the same as mine." Hyojin smiled but didn't say anything. With his familiarity with Susanoo, even if he doesn't use the Tenseigan ability, he still has a chance of winning against Fuyue, because Fuyue is very unfamiliar with the use of the Manjikyu Sharingan, and his skills are far inferior to Jishue and Itachi. The only problem was how to deal with the spread of Tensho in such a restricted environment. Hyojin did not have a good solution to this problem. After chatting for a while, Hyojin left the ward. In addition to visiting the seriously injured Kakashi, Hyojin also had another purpose, which was to take the opportunity to collect some of Kakashi's cell tissues. The development of the Earth Escape clone was only a matter of time. Preparing for a rainy day, he naturally had to prepare for the next step of the Lightning Escape clone. According to the previous standards, the first target is naturally a Kekkei Genkai ninja who has the Kekkei Genkai that contains the lightning chakra. But with the progress of Hyojin's cell fusion technology and the improvement of the Kekkei Genkai technique, he actually doesn't need to follow the previous standards, because as long as he clones a clone that meets the requirements, he can also develop a Kekkei Genkai that is related to the lightning chakra based on his previous experience of practicing the Kekkei Genkai. Therefore, his current standard is very simple. That is, the target's cell tissues must have a very high affinity for the lightning chakra. And if screening according to this standard, the range of choices available for Hyojin is actually very wide. Kakashi, Sasuke, and other ninjas who are extremely good at lightning release in the village, as well as 4th generation laying, 5th generation laying, etc., are all targets for him to choose from. Therefore, Hyojin took advantage of the present convenience and secretly collected Kakashi's cell tissues in the hospital. In fact, among all the targets that Hyojin screened, Kakashi's priority is still very high, only below Cloud Village's 5th generation laying, and almost on the same level as 4th generation laying. And the most famous lightning release ninja in the shinobi world, 4th generation laying is not the best target for Hyojin. Because what really makes 4th generation laying famous in the shinobi world is the strong physique of 4th generation laying, as well as the secret technique lightning chakra mode unique to the Cloud Village. It can be said that the strength of 4th generation laying is the strength of his physique, the high affinity of his cell tissues to lightning chakra, and the secret technique lightning chakra mode. If only the affinity of his cell tissues to lightning chakra is taken out for comparison, then 4th generation Lei Ying's cell tissues may not be stronger than Kakashi's cell tissues. In terms of physique, Hyojin's own cell tissues are already strong enough. He only needs cell tissues with high affinity for lightning chakra. Therefore, in addition to the most preferred fifth-generation laying, other targets in Hyojin's eyes have no obvious advantages or disadvantages. After putting Kakashi's cell tissues into a portable storage disk, Hyojin left my hospital. With the 35 million yuan he earned from the betting station, plus the 50 million yuan that 3 generations secretly paid before, Hyojin now has 85 million yuan in his hands. With this amount of money, the research and development of the Type 2 biological armor will not be a problem, so Hyojin's mind is no longer on the village. Swoosh, just as Hyojin was preparing to rush to the Sky Fortress to research and develop the Type 2 biological armor, to ensure that the Rinnegan in Xianglin's eye socket could be smoothly integrated, a dark tribe landed in front of him and half-knelt on the ground. With a respectful tone, he said, "Master Hyojin, 3 generations is looking for you. Please go to Naruto's office." "Got it." Hyojin nodded casually. He had long expected that 3 generations would look for him to discuss the matter of electing 5th generation Naruto, but he did not expect the usually calm 3 generations to be so impatient. Walking to Naruto's office, Hyojin said, "Naruto-sama, what can I do for you? Come and sit." 3 generations did not put on airs. Instead, they got up and greeted Hyojin and led him to the sofa at the side. After both sides sat down, 3 generations did not talk nonsense and directly said, "Jin, the village has decided that you are the candidate for 5th generation Naruto." After that, 3 generations looked at Hyojin, waiting for Hyojin's face to be filled with surprise and excitement. No one can resist the temptation of Naruto's position. 3 generations are sure that Hyojin will be ecstatic and even at a loss. Hyojin was just a little stunned, and immediately said with an indifferent expression, "I refuse." "Ahem, what did you say?" 3 generations, who was about to take the opportunity to propose various additional conditions to Hyojin to become the 5th generation, choked back the words that were about to come out of his mouth, and had a surprised look on his face. "The second update, the new week, the list will be updated, and I beg for recommendation vote." "It's no trouble at all, thank you everyone." Chapter 802. In order to persuade Hyojin to accept Naruto's agreement, the 3 generations had prepared a lot of words and considered almost all the countermeasures, but they did not expect Hyojin to refuse so directly. He was surprised and asked in disbelief, "What did you say?" Hyojin shrugged and said indifferently, "I'm sorry, but I refuse to accept the position of 5th Naruto." For a brief moment, he was tempted, but it was only for a moment. Because when he thought of being tied to Naruto's office, facing endless documents, and the mess Mai was in, he felt a headache. In addition, he was already busy with many things. The Type 2 biological armor had not been developed yet, and the fusion of Xianglin's Eye of Rinnegan was also at a critical moment. The development of the Earth Release clone had not been completed, and the Lightning Release clone and the Yang Release clone were still only plans on paper. He simply could not spare the energy and attention to deal with Mai's mess. For him, it was not that he could not become Naruto, but it was obviously not a good time. What's more, once he became Naruto, Hyojin would be equivalent to walking on the stage. Whether it was the Akatsuki organization or Otsutsuki on the moon, they would all focus on him, study him, and target him. This was undoubtedly very disadvantageous for him, who was still preparing for the Kekii fusion ceremony, and preparing to break through the supreme Kekii net. Seeing that Hyojin answered without hesitation, the 3 generations became even more puzzled and asked doubtfully, "Hyojin, don't you want to become Naruto?" "Too troublesome." Hyojin shook his head. "What troublesome?" Sandaime-sama almost coughed up a mouthful of blood. It took him a long time to recover and said with a speechless expression, "Kid, you are too undisciplined. Protecting the village is your responsibility as a Konoha ninja, and becoming a Hokage is also part of this responsibility. How can you shirk it just because you are afraid of trouble?" The three generations felt very uncomfortable at this moment. He originally hoped to use the throne of Naruto as bait to lure Hyojin step by step, and then take the opportunity to propose an agreement to deprive Hyojin of the real power of Naruto, and let Hyojin be an honest Naruto. But he never thought that Hyojin would directly refuse the appointment of Naruto because he was afraid of trouble. Not only did his plan fail, but also gave him a headache on how to persuade Hyojin to accept the position of Naruto. Hyojin smiled and said, "Responsibility, I'm afraid you should say this to Jiraiya-sama and Tsunade-sama." The three generations' face suddenly fell, and he sighed. If Jiraiya or Tsunade were willing to stand up and bear the burden of Naruto, there would not be a scandal of Danzo defecting to Mai as an agent of Naruto. Seeing that Hyojin was not moved and did not covet the position of Naruto, the three generations felt that it was the most suitable to let Hyojin be the fifth generation, so he said, "The current situation does not allow you to refuse. Since you are already a candidate of Naruto, then you have to take the position of the fifth generation even if you don't want to." "I am not the only candidate of Naruto," Suijin muttered in a low voice with a playful look on his face. "You!" The three generations were angry for a moment. In the current situation, if Hyojin was not willing to be the fifth generation, Naruto's faction really could not do anything to Hyojin. Because at this time, it was not Hyojin who was begging Naruto's faction, but Naruto's faction begging Hyojin. If Hyojin was not a candidate of Naruto, then Naruto's faction would completely lose the trump card to prevent Uchiha from ascending to the throne of Naruto. At the thought of this, the three generations did not know what was wrong with him, but he unexpectedly said, "Old rules, 50 million. Hyojin's expression changed, and a light flashed in his eyes. He immediately shook his head and smiled. "Naruto-sama, you misunderstood me. I am really not suitable to be this Naruto. Moreover, how can Naruto's matter be like a business deal? This is not a problem of money at all." The three generations squinted and looked at Hyojin seriously. He probed, "You think it's too little?" Hyojin shook his head. "It's not suitable. It's really not suitable." The three generations immediately said with a poker face, 60 million. "It's not a problem of money. 70 million. Aren't you making things difficult for me? 80 million. I'm thinking about the village. I really can't be, don't be too greedy, kid." After a pause, the three generations said angrily, "You have to be this Naruto. This is the task given to you by the village. How much money? Name your own price." Hyojin thought about it seriously for a while and said, "I won't be this Naruto without 100 million. The three generations gritted his teeth. 100 million it is. However, you have to cooperate with the village during the vote of confidence." "I'll try my best." Hyojin stood up from the sofa and said, "However, let me make this clear first. I will not be responsible for the daily affairs and defense of the village." Since he did not have the energy to take care of the position of Naruto, Hyojin would not occupy the latrine pit and cause a power vacuum in the village. Therefore, he removed his responsibility in advance, indicating that Amatsukumi's organization would not be fully responsible for Mai's defense. The three generations thought that they had taken advantage of the situation and nodded repeatedly. "Don't worry. The daily affairs and defense of the village will be handled by Kakashi and the advisory elders." Hyojin, who was still thinking about developing the Type 2 biological armor and had fused with the reincarnation eye, nodded and immediately left Naruto's office. After Hyojin left, the advisory elders of the village came to Naruto's office. Zhuan Xiaochun asked eagerly, "How did it go? Did he agree?" The three generations had a strange expression and did not know how to explain. Seeing this, Zhuan Xiaochun's face darkened. "Why? He doesn't agree to our conditions?" Jiraiya quickly said, "Teacher, we can actually relax our conditions and let Hyojin keep a part of the Black Ops. I think it's still okay." Tsunade also said, Well, we can also let him have the highest authority in the intelligence squad. Everyone present knew that in the current situation, Naruto's faction did not have many bargaining chips to negotiate with Hyojin. If Hyojin refused to cooperate, Naruto's faction would really be in trouble. Therefore, seeing that the three generations' face was a little strange, they almost did not hesitate and chose to take the initiative to give in. The three generations shook their heads. Seeing that the three generations were so embarrassed, as if it was difficult for them to speak, Zhuan Shao-chun's eyes turned cold. What does Hyojin want? Jiraiya and Tsunade also looked over with a puzzled expression. The three generations gritted their teeth again. He doesn't want to be Naruto at all. I spent 100 million to make him agree. Tsunade was stunned and murmured, "How could this be? Why didn't I think of it? First, I sincerely ask for recommendation votes on Monday. It's no trouble at all. Thank you everyone." Chapter 803. After reaching an agreement with Hyojin, Naruto's faction began to build momentum for the next vote of confidence. With the help of Naruto's faction, the news quickly spread throughout the village. After learning that the village was going to skip the last competition and directly enter the vote of confidence of all the Jonins, the Uchiha clan suddenly became excited. In the eyes of the Uchiha clan, this was undoubtedly a trick played by the village when they had no other way out. Because the Uchiha clan had long believed that Chief Fuyue would defeat Hyojin and become the fifth Naruto, they could not accept this decision of the village at all. Fuyue, who had already regarded the position of Naruto as his own, rushed into Naruto's office without thinking about it. 3 generations, how can the village change the election rules so casually? Glaring at 3 generations, Fuyue almost roared, "We, the Uchiha clan, will never agree to it." 3 generations smiled and poured a cup of tea for Fuyue, and said calmly, "Fuyue, don't forget that the vote of confidence is the tradition of the village to elect Naruto." Fuyue immediately asked, "But haven't the new rules been set for the election of the 5th generation?" In the meeting of the higher-ups, this was passed through a vote. 3 generations did not deny it. He nodded slightly and said, "Well, it's true. After the martial arts competition, whether it's you or Hyojin, your strength has been recognized by the village. You are excellent ninjas who are qualified to run for the 5th Naruto, so the next step is naturally the vote of confidence." This? Fuyue was speechless for a moment. 3 generations put away his smile and said seriously, "Fuyue, you have to understand that this is the election of Naruto, not the test of Chunin and Jonin. Strength is only one of the necessary conditions to become the 5th generation, not the only condition. Strength is important, but if you want to become the Naruto recognized by the villagers, you must go through the vote of confidence of the Jonins. No one can cross this link." Fuyue said coldly, 3 generations, this was not agreed in advance. 3 generations did not avoid Fuyue's cold gaze and said bluntly, "The meeting records are in the archives. You can go and check them at any time. The promise of the village is only to include the competition in the election of the 5th generation, but it has never been promised that the ownership of the 5th generation will be decided by the competition." Fuyue frowned and recalled for a moment. He was surprised to find that at the meeting, the village had indeed blurred the weight of the competition in the election of the 5th Naruto. Damn it, they planned this from the start. Fuyue, who realized that he had been fooled from the beginning, suddenly became a little angry. At this moment, Xiang Lin actually launched two Susanoo at the same time, and they were two complete Susanoo with a height of 100 meters, 4 limbs, and full armor. Oh no! A thought quickly flashed in Hyojin's mind. The fact that Xiang Lin can launch two Susanoo at the same time only shows one problem, that is, the two pairs of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan that have merged together on the surface, their pupil power is not really unified. These two pairs of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan with living characteristics seem to be resisting the unification of the pupil power. Perhaps they are faintly aware that once the pupil power is unified, they will completely disappear in the fusion. And the two Susanoo that have gone berserk are undoubtedly the most intuitive manifestation of the two pairs of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan's resistance to the pupil power unification. After realizing this, Hyojin understood that it is impossible to complete the final fusion by relying on Xiang Lin alone, so he slowly made a hand seal while saying, "Then let me make you give up." After saying that, a soft sky-blue Tenseigan chakra quickly wrapped Hyojin's whole body. Here's the first one, asking for recommendation votes. I heard that the monthly votes will start to double on the 28th. Please keep your monthly votes first. When the 28th doubles, 1 vote will be equal to 2 votes. As soon as his voice fell, Hyojin waved the golden sword in his right hand, and slashed horizontally at the two complete forms of Susanoo in front of him. Swish! The dazzling golden sword instantly slashed at the junction between the overlapping and separating waists of the two complete forms of Susanoo. The golden wheel reincarnation explosion, composed of 6 truth-seeking balls, and the length was deliberately compressed by Hyojin, so it was not something that the two complete forms of Susanoo could resist at all. Kacha, as the golden sword drew a dazzling arc, the sound of breaking echoed, and the two complete forms of Susanoo were instantly cut in half at the waist. The parts above the waist that were split from each other immediately turned into flying ash in the air, and the parts below the waist that overlapped with each other instantly merged into one and shrank into Xiang Lin's body. Xiang Lin, who was sitting on the operating table with a painful face, also lay back at this time, and his whole person became quiet, as if he had fainted again. Hyojin gasped as he exited the Tenseigan chakra mode. In the case of not using the Ein Seal chakra, 6 truth-seeking balls was his limit. Here's the second one, I only ask for recommendation votes. There will be a doubling of the monthly votes on the 28th, please keep it first, and vote again on the 28th, please. Chapter 809. In the Underground Palace of the Sound Village. Edo Tensei Technique. With a light shout, 2 complex psychic techniques suddenly extended from the ground, and in the center of these 2 psychic techniques, 2 coffins with the words first and second engraved on their lids rose from the ground and appeared in the underground palace. Kacha, with 2 consecutive crisp sounds, the coffin lids fell, revealing the 2 corpses in the coffins. At this time, a dark shadow came out of the darkness. This dark shadow was not a bystander, it was the ninja school instructor Uchiha Do who escaped from my not long ago, and the Edo Tensei technique, just now also came from his hands. Walking to the 2 coffins, Uchiha Do checked the 2 impure earth bodies inside, and immediately revealed a smile, and said to himself, finally mastered this technique. Through the previous attempt, Uchiha Do confirmed that not only has he mastered the Edo Tensei technique, but also through the notes left by Orochimaru, successfully channeled the 2 impure earth bodies created by Orochimaru. Soon, Uchiha Do restrained the joy on his face, and made a hand seal to cancel the channeling. Bang bang, in a burst of white smoke, the coffins containing the impure earth bodies disappeared in front of Uchiha Do. With a sullen face, Duru came to a secret room. In the center of this secret room, there was a cloud ninja tied up in chains from head to toe, and on the ground around this cloud ninja, there were many strange techniques engraved on the ground. Glancing at the terrified cloud ninja on the ground, Uchiha Do did not speak, but calmed his mind, then raised his hands and began to make hand seals, and finally shouted, "Psychic Edo Tensei Technique." With a loud shout, the chakra on his body instantly poured into the technique engraved on the ground. Ah! The scream of the cloud ninja lying in the formation echoed and filled the entire secret chamber. Do immediately looked over nervously and found that the cloud ninja lying on the ground seemed to have been sucked out of his soul by some kind of force. His whole body was curled up into a ball in pain, while talismans, as if from a different world, poured out from all directions and stuck to his body, wrapping him inside and out, turning him into a human cocoon. After a while, everything calmed down, and there was only a human cocoon wrapped in talisman paper in front of Do. Dolua quickly stepped forward and tore the talisman paper, only to find that the figure wrapped in the talisman paper was not the figure he was expecting, but the cloud ninja who was used as a sacrifice before, but he was already dead. How could it fail? Do frowned, and then carefully went through the whole process of casting the spell just now, repeatedly confirming that he did not make any mistakes. After pondering for a while, a hint of joy appeared on Do's face. It seems that Lord Orochimaru is not dead. Obviously, the person who just tried the Edo Tensei was not someone else, but Orochimaru. After losing contact with Orochimaru, Do fell into an unprecedented anxiety and fear. He seemed to have lost his direction again and lost the meaning of living. Therefore, he violated the order of Orochimaru to monitor Naruto and Sasuke in the ninja school, escaped from Mai without authorization, quietly returned to the Sound Village, and mobilized all the Sound ninjas to search for the missing Orochimaru. However, no matter how Do searched, he could not find the slightest clue of Orochimaru. One must know that in the shinobi world, excluding some monsters, Orochimaru, as one of the Sannin, is already one of the strongest. There are only a few strong enemies in the shinobi world that can make him disappear. Therefore, Do speculated that Orochimaru must have encountered one of the Akatsuki, Amatsukami, or Danzo, whose strength surpassed the Kage level after defecting. Since there has been no news of Orochimaru for so long, Do is afraid that he is dead. Therefore, Do cracked Orochimaru's laboratory and obtained the information of Orochimaru about the Edo Tensei, trying to make the dead Orochimaru return to the shinobi world through Edo Tensei, which can confuse the boundary between life and death. But with the failure of the Edo Tensei technique just now, Do was sure that Orochimaru didn't die, but was captured or sealed. I must find a way to rescue Orochimaru-sama. Without any hesitation, Do made up his mind. It's just that the ones who captured or sealed Orochimaru must be the Akatsuki, Amatsukami, or Danzo. With the current strength of the village, it is impossible to rescue Orochimaru from the hands of these powerful enemies. For a moment, Do's mind was once again invaded by a feeling of helplessness. Early the next morning, Do left the underground palace and summoned Kimimaro, Yamato, Yugo, and Haku and ordered, "Stop looking for Orochimaru-sama for now." Kimimaro, whose face was a little pale, asked bluntly, "Why?" Do knew Kimimaro's loyalty to Orochimaru, so he immediately explained, "I have confirmed that Orochimaru-sama is not dead, but was captured or sealed by Akatsuki, Amatsukami, or Danzo." Yamato was taken aback. What? Not to mention the Akatsuki and Amatsukami in the shinobi world, Shimura Danzo, who swept the 6 paths of pain and defeated Kumo's AB combination, is not someone that the Sound Village can deal with. While the 4 were surprised, Do slowly said, If we want to rescue Orochimaru-sama, we must obtain the power to negotiate with the Akatsuki, Amatsukami, and Danzo. So, I need you to spend your energy on cracking the 4 important laboratories left by Orochimaru-sama. We must receive all of Orochimaru-sama's power in order to have the qualifications to bargain with those powerful enemies. Kimimaro said coldly, "What about you?" "Me?" Do adjusted the glasses on the bridge of his nose and said with a smile, "I want to go to a place." Although there was a faint smile on Do's face, the 4 could clearly feel Do's determination to die. After hesitating for a moment, Yamato, the oldest among the 4, couldn't help but ask, "Where are you going?" Do shook his head and didn't answer Yamato's question. The 4 looked at each other and found a trace of deep worry in each other's eyes. After losing Orochimaru, the Sound Village lost its backbone. Whether it was Orochimaru's assistant or the 4 Sound Ninjas, none of them had the ability to replace Orochimaru. Because of Orochimaru's several betrayals, the Sound Village couldn't find any real allies at all. So, if they want to rescue Orochimaru, they can only rely on their own strength. After a few words to the 4 Sound Ninjas, Do didn't delay and immediately left the Sound Village. After a long time, Do came to the cave that connected to the Ryuchi cave where Naruto and Hinata were imprisoned. Looking at the bottomless darkness in the cave, Do sighed and said, "I don't know if I can come out again. The second update is here. I only ask for recommendation vote. Please vote after the double event on the 28th. Thank you." Chapter 810. The moonlight that was as cold as frost shone through the gaps in the lush canopy and into the quiet forest, casting mottled shadows that alternated between light and dark on the ground. Swish, suddenly, a breeze blew a leaf on the ground. Beside the dancing leaves, 3 figures shuttled through the mottled shadows. They were Jishue, Itachi, and Shinichi, the 3 kaleidoscopes of the Uchiha clan, who had just received the news from Hyojin and rushed over from the Uchiha clan. After yawning, Shinichi muttered in the team, "It's so late. Why did the boss call us here?" Jishue shook her head. "There must be a reason why Senpai asked us to come here. Don't ask any more." Itachi pondered for a moment and said, "Senpai asked us to meet in the secret laboratory in the Forest of Death. Maybe it's related to the first-generation cell transplant surgery." "Surgery? That's great." Shinichi grinned. Ever since he fought with Obsidian last time, his eyesight had been greatly damaged, and his eyesight had begun to decline. He had been back in the village for so long, but he had not adapted to it. Therefore, he was more eager to have the transplant surgery than Itachi. Seeing Shinichi's joy, Itachi reminded him lightly, "Brother Shinichi, you have to be mentally prepared for the failure of the surgery." Shinichi was a little confused. Why? Jishue took over the conversation. Senpai's transplant technology should be the strongest in the ninja world today, but the first-generation cells are extraordinary. Therefore, even if Senpai is in charge of the surgery, there's still a possibility of failure. Shinichi did not care. What will happen if it fails? Jishue was a little uncertain. Probably will become a tree? The laziness on Shinichi's face instantly froze. Itachi, who was at the side, said seriously, "To be precise, it will be swallowed by the trees." Shinichi glared at Jishue and Itachi. "Hey, did you make this up? You just want to scare me, right?" Jishue shook his head and said seriously, "When I perform the operation, in order to increase the success rate of the operation, Senpai specially asked me to replace the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan with flame." Shinichi's expression became solemn, and he was secretly shocked. Hachi's Sharingan is the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan? Hyojin had once mentioned to Shinichi that there were only 2 ways to recover the ocular power. One was to transplant the primeval cells. With the help of the high-purity yang release contained in the primeval cells, the combination of yin and yang would produce the power of omniscient nature, and then use the power of omniscient nature to replenish the lost ocular power. The other way was to integrate a pair of blood relatives Manjikyu Sharingan, condense the extreme In release chakra, and obtain the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan that is superior to ordinary Manjikyu Sharingan. Shinichi had always thought that Uchiha Sharingan was just a pair of Manjikyu Sharingan. Now, after listening to Jishui's words, he realized that Uchiha's Sharingan was actually stronger than his own. Jishui continued, "But what Senpai and I didn't expect was that even with the help of Flame's eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, I still couldn't suppress the primeval cells that were implanted in my body, and let those cells go berserk in my body." To this day, Jishui has a chill when he recalled the scene of the primeval cells going berserk in his body. Itachi also experienced it personally, so he added, "At that time, the berserk primeval cells absorbed Brother Jishui's chakra, turned into a big tree, broke through the laboratory, and rushed to the ground." Shinichi asked with a stiff face, "What happened then?" "Phew!" Gently exhaling, Jishui said, "Fortunately, there was Senpai and Itachi to suppress those crazy trees outside, and the power of Flame's eternal Manjikyu Sharingan is far superior to my own Manjikyu Sharingan, so at the last moment I barely survived." "Is it really that dangerous?" Pausing for a moment, Zen subconsciously covered his eyes with his hand and said, "You almost died using the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, and my Manjikyu Sharingan's pupillary power has long been depleted. Wouldn't the success rate of my Manjikyu Sharingan be lower than yours?" Without waiting for Jishui to speak, Itachi nodded calmly. "Well, in theory, the success rate of our surgery should be much lower than Brother Jishui's." At this time, Shinichi asked Jishui with some suspicion, "Did Flame really lend his eternal Manjikyu Sharingan to you? Even an ordinary Uchiha Sharingan is his most precious thing, not to mention a pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan that is almost unique in the shinobi world. Therefore, it is difficult for Shinichi to imagine that Uchiha Sharingan would lend his eternal Manjikyu Sharingan to Jishui for such a dangerous transplant surgery. One must know that if the transplant surgery fails, Jishui's whole body will be swallowed by the wildly growing trees. At that time, even if the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan can be rescued, no one can guarantee that the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan will not be damaged in the process. Putting himself in Shishui's shoes, Shinichi doesn't have the courage to lend his Manjikyu Sharingan. Jishui said, "Flame can be trusted." Itachi also echoed, "Well, Hain Senpai is an elder of the organization, and she takes good care of us." "Hey, don't say it like she is very old. That guy should not be as old as me." After a pause, Shinichi pondered, "Since that freak is willing to lend her eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, why don't we also borrow her eternal Manjikyu Sharingan? At worst, we will owe her a favor." Shinichi is still very confident in himself. He feels that Jishui can survive the surgery smoothly with the help of Flame's eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, then he can also survive the surgery smoothly with the help of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. Jishui said, "Don't think too much, Senpai should have an arrangement." After saying that, the three of them came to the old laboratory of Hyojin in the Forest of Death. After activating the mechanism in the tree hole, the three of them passed through the passage and came to the underground laboratory. At this time, they found that Hyojin was already waiting in the laboratory, and beside Hyojin, there was a figure wearing a black cloak of Amatsukami and a sun pattern mask. "Is that Flame?" Shinichi, who was thinking of borrowing the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan from Uchiha Sharingan, was happy at first, but then immediately frowned. Because he has already perceived that the figure standing quietly beside Hyojin is not the Uchiha Sharingan he knows, but a stranger with a chakra that he instinctively fears. Jishui also looked at the figure standing beside Hyojin and asked curiously, "Senpai, who is she?" Hyojin chuckled and said, "Let me introduce her to you. She is a new member of Amatsukami, codenamed Sun God, and she is also my assistant in this transplant operation." "Sun God? The three of them looked at the new member in front of them with the codename Kamikaze. Here's the first update, asking for recommendation votes. It seems that after 12 o'clock tonight, the double monthly vote activity will start. Please vote after 12 o'clock, please. Oh, please. Chapter 8:11. Obviously, the new member of Amatsukami, who was named by Hyojin as Young God, was not someone else, but Xiang Lin, who had just successfully integrated the Rinnegan a few days ago. For Xiang Lin, who has the eyes of the immortals, the code name Young God is appropriate. After successfully integrating the Rinnegan, Hyojin made a comprehensive examination of Xiang Lin's body and the newly born Rinnegan in her eye socket. Perhaps because of the baptism of the power of the universe, Xiang Lin's physique has been significantly improved than before. Although the Yang release chakra contained in her body is not as good as the almost extreme Yang release chakra contained in the first-generation cells, compared to before, the quality improvement is still very obvious, and it seems that because of the successful integration of the Rinnegan, the resistance of this newly born Rinnegan to Xiang Lin's body was much lighter than Hyojin expected. He didn't have time to use many means to suppress the Rinnegan, and the Rinnegan obediently accepted the fact that Xiang Lin was its master. However, he doesn't know whether it was because Xiang Lin was still young or because the Rinnegan had just been born. In short, Xiang Lin tried many times but found that she could only use the low-intensity, Shinra Tensei, and Wanxiang Tensei at present. In terms of absorbing chakra, she could only absorb it in close contact. Powerful sealing techniques like Chibaku Tensei and Samsara Tensei, which can perfectly resurrect the dead, Xiang Lin is still unable to use them at present. As for the higher level, such as the pupil technique contained in Madara Uchiha's Rinnegan eyes, and the pupil technique contained in Sasuke's 6 Tomo Rinnegan eyes in the original space and time, there is not even a shadow of it. In this regard, Hyojin is not in a hurry. After all, Nagato has obtained Madara Uchiha's Rinnegan for more than 10 years, and it took him a little bit of time to explore and develop the abilities contained in the Rinnegan eyes. Xiang Li had only obtained the reincarnation eyes for a few days, and she herself was only a little over 10 years old. She was just a child that hadn't grown up yet, so it was normal for her to temporarily be unable to use the full power of the reincarnation eyes. Shinichi pursed his lips. I thought it was a flame. Flame? Slightly stunned, Hyojin casually asked back. Today is the surgery to transplant the first-generation cells for you and Itachi. What about Guan Yin? Shinichi immediately showed a flattering smile and leaned in front of Hyojin. Boss, I heard that this kind of transplant is very dangerous. Can you help me borrow the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan from Flame? Don't worry, I'll definitely return this favor in the future. Itachi, who looked calm on the surface, also looked at Hyojin. Compared with Shinichi, who only listened to the oral description, as a person who experienced it, he knew more about what Jishui had experienced in the operation of transplanting the first-generation cells, so he knew far more about the danger of this transplant than Shinichi. Hyojin smiled and said, Don't worry, I already have other arrangements, there is no need to bother to replace the Sharingan. Shinichi asked curiously, What is the success rate of the operation? After thinking about it, Hyojin replied, Probably 30% to 40%. Shinichi said with a sad face, Not even 50%? Hyojin explained with a smile, Although the success rate of the operation has not improved qualitatively, but with the Yang God, even if the operation fails, you can still survive, so don't worry about it. The eyes of the three people once again turned to Xiang Li, who was standing quietly beside Hyojin. Although Xiang Li was only a little over 10 years old, because she was wearing the Type 2 biological armor, her current height and body shape were almost equivalent to a normal girl of 17 or 18 years old. And the Type 2 biological armor on her body was actually not the previous one. The previous one, because it opened the overload mode twice when fusing with the Rinnegan, its internal structure and cell tissues were irreversible damage, so after the birth of the Rinnegan, it successfully retired. Therefore, at this time, Xiangli was actually wearing a brand new Type 2 biological armor that Hyojin spent a lot of money to replicate. Under the sun pattern mask, Xiangli also blinked her eyes, curiously looking at the 3 Uchiha family kaleidoscopes in front of her. Before coming here, Hyojin briefly introduced some of the situation of Amatsukami to her, so she knew that the 3 Uchiha family kaleidoscopes in front of her were all members of Amatsukami, and they were Hyojin's right-hand men. However, because she didn't understand anything, Hyojin specifically told her to listen more and talk less when meeting other members of Amatsukami. Therefore, Xiangli, who has always been lively, had a lot of things to say, want to ask, but because of Hyojin's previous instructions, she had to hold back. Xiangli was having a hard time holding back her words, but on the other side, Zhishui and the others saw that Xiangli didn't say a word from beginning to end. It seemed that she didn't have any intention of talking to them, so they all felt strange. Shinichi stared at Xiangli while muttering, "Anyhow, we are all members of Amatsukami, don't you even want to say hello?" Xiangli immediately felt conflicted. She is struggling whether she should wave to them, shake hands with them one by one, or just nod at them from a distance. She is only 10 years old, so she still doesn't know how to communicate with these strong shinobi in front of her. Since she was wearing the Type 2 biological armor, even though Xiang Lin's inner turmoil was reflected to her body, it was blocked by the external biological armor. Therefore, in Shinichi's eyes, it seemed like Xiang Lin was indifferent and ignored what he said just now. Not to mention Shinichi, who was secretly annoyed. Even Zhishui and Itachi had an arrogant impression of Xiangli. Hyojin naturally saw all of this, but he just smiled and didn't explain anything. Xiangli, who now has the Rinnegan, is the last card he prepared for himself, so he doesn't want Xiangli to have too much entanglement with other members of Amatsukami. If he didn't need Xiangli's Rinnegan ability this time, he wouldn't have brought her out. Okay, Zhishui, you are responsible for guarding the ground. Itachi, Shinichi, the two of you come with me. After saying a few words, Hyojin walked towards the prepared operating room. Yes. Zhishui nodded respectfully, turned around and walked out. For him, Hyojin is not only the leader of Amatsukami, but also the 5th Naruto, who is about to ascend to the position of Naruto. He admires and looks up to him. At this time, Shinichi, who followed Hyojin into the operating room, curiously sensed Xiangli, and after noticing a trace of strangeness, he subconsciously moved closer and discovered that Xiangli's eyes under the sun pattern mask were exactly the same as Nagato, the leader of Akatsuki. Rinnegan? Almost instantly Shinichi retreated far away, and while warning loudly, he was on full alert. The second chapter is here. There should be a third chapter later, please vote. Chapter 8-12. With Shinichi's shock, Zhishui and Itachi also became alert. At this time, Shinichi stared at Xiang Lin in front of him and shouted, "Hey, how come you have the Rinnegan? Are you Nagato? No, are you Nagato's new 6 Paths of Pain?" For Shinichi, who joined the Akatsuki organization as a spy, the Rinnegan eyes in Nagato's eyes were a nightmare hidden deep in his heart. God knows how many nights Shinichi dreamed that his identity as a spy was exposed and he died tragically in the hands of Nagato, so when he saw the Rinnegan eyes in Xiang Lin's eyes, he had a stress reaction. Moreover, he knew that the eyes in the 6 Paths of Pain, created by Nagato, would all show the appearance of the Rinnegan eyes, so he quickly analyzed the situation in his mind. Xiang Lin was directly stunned and didn't know what to do. However, her emotional fluctuations and physical tension were all covered up by the Type 2 biological armor, so her external performance was extremely indifferent, as if she didn't care about Shinichi's abnormal movements at all. And in the eyes of Shinichi, This indifference was almost exactly the same as that of Nagato, who claimed to be a god. Jishui and Itachi were also surprised at this time. Although the two of them didn't join the Akatsuki organization like Shinichi and had close contact with Nagato, in several confrontations with the Akatsuki organization, they had seen Nagato from a distance, and they had seen the Rinnegan eyes in Nagato's eyes. Because of Hyojin, the two of them knew far more about the Rinnegan eyes than ordinary people. They knew that the Rinnegan eyes were the eyes once owned by the legendary Six Paths of Pain, so when they learned that the young god had a pair of Rinnegan eyes, they were no less surprised than Shinichi. However, they instinctively believed in Hyojin and didn't think that Nagato had the ability to sneak under Hyojin's eyes, so their reaction was not as big as Shinichi's. Hyojin smiled and said, "Don't worry, the young god is not Nagato, nor is it the Six Paths of Pain created by Nagato." After listening to Hyojin's explanation, Shinichi also reacted. If the young god in front of him was really the leader of the Akatsuki organization, Nagato, then he should have been killed by Hyojin a long time ago. Phew! After letting out a sigh of relief, Shinichi asked, "Boss, what about her eyes?" Hyojin nodded gently and said, "Well, the young god also has a pair of Rinnegan eyes, just like Nagato." Xiang Lin finally found the opportunity and nodded in agreement with Hyojin. It really is the Rinnegan eyes. The three Uchiha who have the Manjikyu Sharingan were shocked at this moment. The reason why the Akatsuki organization can threaten the entire shinobi world is actually because of the pair of Rinnegan eyes in Nagato's eye sockets, which is known as the Eyes of the Sage. So in the hearts of these three people, they have always believed that there is only one pair of Rinnegan eyes. Now that they suddenly saw a second pair of Rinnegan eyes, and the other party is also a member of the same organization, the surprise and shock in their hearts can be imagined. Seeing Jishui, Itachi, and Shinichi look like they have seen a ghost, Hyojin smiled and said, "Who told you that there is only one pair of Rinnegan eyes in the shinobi world? Well, we'll talk about the Rinnegan later. Jishui, you go outside and be on guard. Itachi, Shinichi, don't just stand there, come with me." After saying that, Hyojin walked into the operating room, and Xiang Lin followed him. No wonder he is so arrogant and ignored us. It turns out that he is a strong person with the Rinnegan eyes. After a pause, Shinichi asked Jishui and Itachi next to him, "Is this the first time you two have seen each other?" "Yes." Jishui and Itachi nodded in unison. They had never even heard of the code name, Young God, before, let alone seen it. As Shinichi followed Hyojin, he muttered to himself, "I don't know where the boss found this monster. Hey, but with such a monster as an accomplice, I feel much more at ease." When he thought that the young god in front of him was a strong person at the same level as Nagato, the leader of the Akatsuki organization, Shinichi didn't have any resistance to the arrogance shown by the young god before. Not only him, but even Jishui and Itachi also showed understanding and naturally accepted the arrogance of the young god. Perhaps in the eyes of Uchiha, arrogance was the privilege of the strong. After a while, Itachi and Shinichi arrived at the operating room. Looking at the cold instruments that filled the entire operating room, Shinichi was a little scared and asked weakly, "Boss, do you really not need to worry? You talk too much." After glaring at Shinichi, Hyojin pointed to the two operating tables in front of him and said, "Lie down on them." Itachi took a deep breath and lay down on the operating table without saying a word. Seeing this, Shinichi had to climb to the operating table obediently. While preparing the fusion solution, Hyojin said, "The young god can only guarantee that the rampaging primordial cells will not kill you, but whether you can subdue the primordial cells or not depends on your own ability." Shinichi curled his lips and said, "If Jishui can do it, I can do it." Itachi still didn't say anything, just nodded slightly. Hyojin glanced at Itachi and didn't say anything. In fact, Itachi's only option is to transplant the primordial cells, because unlike Jishui and Shinichi, Itachi not only has a blood relative who is still alive, but coincidentally, one of his blood relatives has also awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan. And this person is naturally Itachi's father, Uchiha Fuyue. Therefore, Itachi actually has another option, that is to seize his father Fuyue's Manjikyu Sharingan and fuse it into a pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. Seeing Itachi's worried look, Hyojin guessed that Itachi must have considered this option. As Hyojin expected, Itachi did consider this option. Because the current situation of the village is very clear, the Uchiha clan is bound to have no chance to inherit the position of the great Naruto, and if the Uchiha clan loses the vote of confidence and loses the position of great Naruto, then the probability of his father, who has been aroused with ambition, launching a rebellion is extremely high. At that time, whether it is the fate of his father Uchiha Fuyue, or the fate of the Uchiha clan, I am afraid that it will be very tragic. Therefore, in Itachi's view, instead of letting his father bear the infamy of a rebel and then die in the hands of the village, it is better to end it himself, so that at least his father's reputation can be preserved, and his younger brother Uchiha Sasuke can be saved. If it were not for Hyojin's existence, Itachi is afraid that he would have made up his mind by now. However, because of Hyojin, he believed that no matter how complicated the situation was, no matter how difficult the problem, Hyojin would definitely have a way to solve it, so he resolutely chose the option of transplanting the primordial cells, which may be life-threatening. And if there is a day when father and son really go against each other in the future, he will not covet his father's pair of Manjikyu Sharingan. He will save his father's eyes and leave them to his younger brother who may need them in the future. Third update, asking for monthly votes. Soon, in the body of Shinichi on the side, there were also signs of yang release chakra going berserk. The same here, hurry up. Hyojin immediately issued an order to Xiang Lin. The inexperienced Xiang Lin suddenly panicked, hurriedly replaced her hand and pressed it on Shinichi's chest, absorbing the yang release chakra raging in Shinichi's body. Seeing this scene, Hyojin's brows also wrinkled more and more tightly. He expected that things would not go smoothly, but he did not expect that neither Itachi nor Shinichi would succeed. One must know that there are almost no mediocre people who can awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan. All of them are geniuses, so relatively speaking, the probability of Itachi and Shinichi successfully suppressing the Hashirama cells should be far higher than the average Uchiha. His heart sank, and Hyojin suddenly made a decision. He stretched out his hand and pressed it on Itachi's and Shinichi's foreheads, and then activated his Tenseigan's pupil power. Just like how Sasuke invaded Naruto's soul world in the original time and space, he invaded Itachi and Shinichi's soul world respectively. After entering the two soul worlds respectively, Hyojin didn't do anything. He just asked the two exhausted people lying in their respective soul worlds faintly, "Is this all you've got?" In their respective soul worlds, Itachi and Shinichi raised their heads almost at the same time, looking at Hyojin who was descending like a light. "I've stayed up all night, begging for monthly votes. Thank you everyone." Chapter 8:14. I've stayed up all night to finish the 4th chapter. I don't ask for anything else, just for your monthly votes. Thank you, everyone. The 4th chapter of Naruto's World in the Eyes of Reincarnation has been updated, asking for monthly votes. Currently typing, please wait a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 8:15. In the dim soul world of Itachi and Shinichi, Hyojin's arrival is like a beam of light falling from the sky, piercing the curtain and dispelling the darkness. Senpai. In Itachi's soul world, Itachi looked up at Hyojin and looked at the beam of light. Hyojin still didn't move, just quietly looked at Itachi. A touch of disappointment appeared on his face. Is this your belief to protect the family and the village? Is this all you've got? Itachi said bitterly. I'm sorry, I can't suppress the Hashirama chakra, it's too strong. Hyojin's face turned cold. This is the first time he saw Itachi, who would be afraid like ordinary people and retreat like ordinary people. It's rare, you also know how to admit defeat. After a pause, the corner of Hyojin's mouth raised. Since you can't stand this test, then I can only let Sasuke come. Maybe he can endure more hardships than you. Itachi's whole body shook when he heard this, as if he was struck by lightning. With the talent Sasuke has shown so far, Itachi firmly believes that Sasuke will be able to awaken Manjikyu Sharingan in the future, and his family including his father Uchiha Fuyue has a total of 3 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan. In other words, his family can only fuse a pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan at most. If Itachi can't suppress the Hashirama chakra, then he can only choose the easy option and leave this difficult choice to his brother Sasuke. No, I must not fail. At the thought that if he fails, his brother Sasuke will suffer this unbearable pain, Itachi rekindled his fighting spirit. In Shinichi's soul world, Shinichi, who is also exhausted, also looked up at Hyojin, who is bathed in the light, and teased. Boss, you are so dazzling. Do you still have the strength to joke? Hyojin smiled and said, Don't pretend to be dead on the ground. Shinichi shook his head tiredly. It's too hard for me. Hyojin said casually. Oh, it turns out that you are so magnanimous. If that's the case, then forget it. Shinichi looked at Hyojin, and a trace of doubt flashed through his tired eyes. He didn't know why Hyojin suddenly praised him for being magnanimous. He thought that he had nothing to do with magnanimity. If you can't suppress the first-generation cells, you won't be able to recover your eye ability. Without eye ability, what difference is there between you and a piece of trash? Curling his lips, Hyojin continued, Since you're willing to be a cripple, it's obvious that you've magnanimously let go of the grudge against Uchiha Kurumi. But that's normal. You're a woman, after all. It's been so long, who would still care about it? Heh! After a bitter laugh, Shinichi struggled to get up from the ground. Do you have to be so heart-wrenching? Hyojin didn't say anything. He just quietly looked at Shinichi, who was getting up from the ground. Shinichi put his hands on his knees. Panting, he complained, Boss, didn't you say that there were still many chances? I remember clearly that you said it would be lucky to succeed within 3 times. Why don't we try again next time? I'm not ready this time, Hyojin said coldly. If you have this mentality, you won't succeed even if you try 30 or 300 times. The yang release chakra in the first-generation cells represented the ultimate life force. Only the ultimate soul force, which was the Sharingan's eye ability, could suppress it. Therefore, in this game, willpower was the key. Once there was a way out and he wanted to retreat, then no matter how many times he tried, the result would be the same. Because the strength of willpower would directly affect the strength of the eye ability. With a mortal's body, it was impossible to suppress the first-generation cells if he didn't have an indomitable will to die. Shinichi was silent for a moment and said calmly, I'll try my best. Hyojin turned around and said lightly, I'll wait for you outside. Don't let me see you embarrassed again. After that, Hyojin disappeared directly from Shinichi's soul world. Along with it, the dazzling light that had dispelled all the darkness disappeared. Shinichi's face darkened. He tried his best to chase in the direction where the light disappeared in the operating room. Hey, what's going on? Xiang Lin, who was using the ability of the reincarnation eye to absorb the raging yang release chakra in Itachi and Shinichi's bodies, suddenly found that the previously violent and disorderly yang release chakra in their bodies had suddenly become orderly. At this time, Hyojin, who had left the soul world of the two people, ordered Xiang Lin, "Stop." But Xiang Lin was a little hesitant. She was very worried that if she stopped, the yang release chakra in Itachi and Shinichi's bodies would immediately go out of control. "Do it." Hyojin didn't explain. Seeing Hyojin insist, Xiang Lin no longer hesitated. She immediately stopped absorbing the yang release chakra in their bodies. Hyojin injected a dose of fusion fluid into Itachi and Shinichi again. Although injecting 2 tubes of fusion fluid consecutively would cause a great burden on their bodies, Hyojin couldn't care so much at this time. At this time, Hyojin had already realized that it was actually a major mistake to arrange a retreat path for Itachi and Shinichi before the operation. This was because once a person had a retreat path, it would be easier for them to choose to give up, which was precisely the taboo of suppressing the first-generation cells. This was because the first-generation cells were known for their extraordinary vitality and toughness. In order to suppress them, one must have the same amazing toughness and indomitable willpower. Therefore, once Itachi and Shinichi failed this time, they would have a psychological shadow. Then, the probability of success in the future would be infinitely reduced. Therefore, they must succeed this time. Soon, the second tube of fusion fluid began to take effect. Unlike before, this time, Itachi and Shinichi on the operating table were very quiet. Except for the occasional ferocious expression on their faces, it was as if they were just closing their eyes and taking a nap. Hyojin and Xiang Lin, who had the Tenseigan and Rinnegan, were naturally very clear that Itachi and Shinichi were fighting a life-and-death battle with the first-generation cells at this moment. This could be seen from the constantly undulating and wriggling granulation under their skin. Xiang Lin said in surprise, "Sir, they seem to have found the trick to suppress the first-generation cells." Hyojin nodded with a satisfied smile on his face. From the current situation, Itachi and Shinichi had begun to try to suppress the first-generation cells with the effect of the second tube of fusion fluid. After pondering for a moment, Hyojin ordered Xiang Lin, "Transfer the previously absorbed yang release chakra to them again." Xiang Lin's previous behavior belonged to external interference. Therefore, when Itachi and Shinichi gradually mastered the trick to suppress the first-generation cells, Hyojin naturally wanted to eliminate this external interference so that the transplant operation could achieve the best effect. Here's the first update asking for monthly votes. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.